everybody, and welcome back to our Modern League here at the Nerd Rage Gaming home store. Shout out to those folks hanging out with us live on Twitch. Shout out to those folks on our YouTube, and even if you're watching those VODs all the way at the end, welcome, welcome, welcome. This is week number 3 of season 3 of our local Modern League here at Nerd Rage Gaming. So we are highlighting here on our left side, this is Michael Ryan. He is currently tied for first in points on our local league, so we're highlighting him and it's a little bit this fancy Grixis Murktide list, facing off against Joseph on Jeskai Dress Down, deck list that may be pretty close to our second place list from this past weekend on the Nerd Rage Gaming series. I am Dom Stryker, joined by B Rice. Bryce, how you doing?
Not bad. I'm just vibing, man.
Yeah, this is Bryce. He's typically our man in the chair here on these streams. You can see him all over Nerd Rage Gaming, both at the home store and on the series. Now joining us here in the booth as Michael starts on a double, count it double, Mishra's Bauble starting hand, and is doing kind of the scrying and fetch trick here with his Bauble. What I mean by that is taking a quick peek at the top, being like, I don't actually like that, and then cracking that fetch, allowing you to kind of reset that top card. And Joseph, we're playing this Jeskai Dress Down strategy. For those who may be unfamiliar, we're kind of playing Scam, but a controlling version, this time trying to keep our Phlages, maybe keep our Solitudes or Subtleties or the like, by using Dress Down, Consigned to Memories, sometimes even like Doorkeeper Thralls to allow us to keep our card in play instead of them needing to sacrifice themselves.
So how much have you played against the Jeskai Dress Down deck?
Barely any, but I've seen it play a lot because it's got a lot of the same pieces of your classic Jeskai control, but sometimes they'll have up to like 4 consigned to memories because that allows them to scam their Phlages while also being really good against Eldrazi, which is a bad matchup for Jeskai. Then they'll just have Dress Downs and the like that are cards that are still just good in your Jeskai control shell, but allows them to have this kind of 1-2 punch alongside Phlage and the Elementals.
That doesn't sound too bad right now.
No, I mean, same deal, right? I believe in the hands of Cliff, taking second place at NRG this past weekend. Didn't quite take it down, kind of ran into the Boros Menace one too many times. But Michael here playing this Grixis Murktide shell might be kind of this back and forth of kind of these blue card mirrors slamming into each other. And Michael's got more of your just classic, put a card into play, try to protect this sort of strategy, whereas Joseph might have something to go over the top of those sorts of plans. Oh, I also forget they have Null Drifter in this deck.
No. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I do think Null Drifter is among maybe the worst cards in the deck, but it will look cool if Joseph ever does the thing with it.
What do you mean? It draws 2 cards.
Yeah, but it's also devoid, so it doesn't pitch to any of your blue cards. It just feels blue.
Devoid doesn't work in hand?
No, so...
Oh, my God.
No, devoid does work in hand, so it's unpitchable.
Oh, it works in hand,
yes. Which is rough because one of the things about these Jeskai decks is sometimes they can get stranded with a lot of cards in hand, and usually you kind of make up that difference by having those pitch spells, and having a card that is unpitchable that either costs 3 or 7 is not exactly where I want my controlling strat to be.
Yeah, it doesn't really feel that good.
Right, so I think they might have rose-colored glasses from how good the interaction is with Phlage, that they're like, well, maybe we can do this too. And I imagine, hopefully, over time that people play this deck, they might slowly start trimming those cards out of it.
So, what does he have?
Oh
my God, it's
like Aether Burst, Aether Spike. It is, so you're going to gain 2 energy, and then Joseph is allowed to pay any amount of energy, and it does counter unless they pay X amount. So in this case, we got the 2 energy, Joseph paid 1, and countered this frog straight up. Aether Spike. And this kind of allows Joseph to bank some of this energy for cards like Wrath of the Skies and Galvanic Discharge, and makes it a little easier on the mana than sometimes playing Counterspell. So we'll have to kind of watch along if Joseph is playing this in place of Counterspell, in addition to Counterspell. We'll have to kind of find out as the game goes on.
It like has to be in place, right?
Right, at least maybe a couple, maybe a split, maybe it's the 5th one, but at least when you're playing a deck that has so many cards like Elegant Parlor, Arena of Glory, there's just a lot of lands in these decks now that aren't actually blue, that this card is much more easy to cast in the early game, but may punish you late when your opponent can actually pay for all the energy you dump into it.
So resolving and expressive.
Here in the only format this card is legal. And it has been really unheard of, unseen for a while. Basically, the only vestige of this card is in Murktides. Mike here kind of slamming the frog and the Is It strategies together, playing full Grixis. And he was playing blue-black. Mike and I were on RCQ together over the weekend. And I think he just missed these iterations and put them right back in for weeklies.
I mean, why would you take him out?
I mean, slow, I guess, which is weird to say about like your 2-mana cantripping spell. But it is allowing Mike here to also get a sorcery really easily alongside the rest of these cards in the yard for this Nether Goyf to be a 4/5 1-mana spell. And Joseph with this, I imagine, end step dress down might be showing looming impending doom for Mike here.
All right, does he have the flage?
We have no. I saw a ring. I saw a Wrath of the Skies.
Was it just
the null
draw?
drifter? We're gonna null drift it. We're drifting.
Oh, he did it. Okay.
You were drifting. Because very importantly for this null drifter, the drawing is the cast trigger, and then when it comes into play, it does not have any abilities, including the needing to be sacrificed to paying Evoke for it.
Newfangled Eldrazi.
So we get to keep this, I believe, 4/4 flying Annihilator 1, and then the dress down goes away so that everything is now re-affected. This is the trick. That's the trick of the deck. Sometimes it looks really good when you do it with Flage, but Joseph still got to draw these 2 cards here, and now has this 4/4 blocker.
Now, this might be really bad for Michael if he can't answer it.
Right. Thankfully, his Goyf is bigger, right? We have a 4/5 due to just the Tarmogoyf style statting.
Does the Null Drifter not drive? Or fly?
Dude, it drives.
It
It's
drives.
driving and drifted. It does, in fact, fly, yeah. So it's a 4/4 Annihilator 1. But now Joseph has to fight back against both of these Nether Goyfs. We know Joseph has Wrath of the Skies, but Mike looks to be holding up Counterspell Magic, so we might have a little bit of a fight pretty soon here. And notably, Mike does not have Instant in the graveyard yet, which feels weird for an interactive deck like this. So once we do fire off that Counterspell, these Goyfs will be even bigger. Joseph, well, I think sitting on maybe 2 copies of Force Negation, and Mike just not playing into him yet.
I mean, he's going to have to play into it this turn. Like, you just have to answer the board now, or you're just going to set yourself up to lose.
Yes. That's one of the hardest parts, right? Both of these decks kind of applying just the right amount of pressure that you need to either answer or die. And the question is who's going to do the answering and who's going to do the dying?
And right now, Joseph needs an answer. And it's the Wrath, but...
Yeah. The question is are we going to play it in such a way that we're going to allow ourselves to be able to push through, right? Are we going to use our double white and our floating energy from before to hold up our own counter magic? It looks like we could use this fetch here in Arid Mesa to hard cast a Force of Negation if we need to.
So it's not too bad.
No, but this is a pivotal turn. And Joseph does get to eat a permanent from Michael. Might just be that Sink in a Stupor that we just put into play face down as a land.
Seems like the best choice.
Right. We want to keep all of our dull producing and definitely don't want to lose one of these Goyfs. But this also gives us instant. So hopefully Mike will notice that this pumps up these Goyfs, and he does. Very, very good. That's why he's tied for number 1 on our leaderboard. Very aware of what he needs to do to win this game.
All right, now fire off the Wrath. Or take the 4 first.
Yeah, so the question here is how Joseph will use his mana thanks to having that 1 floating energy. And this looks to be the case. It looks like we're going to try to use this Wrath and just the 1 energy we have to hold up possible hard cast Force. And it is straight up Counterspell. Now the question is, does Mike also have a Force? So here's a part that if I was Joseph, I would have cracked this fetch land before doing any of these game actions. Because if Mike did have a Force, he could have forced right now before you had access to your 3rd mana source.
Yes.
Which, those are the tiny things that matter when you're playing these blue decks against each other. Is I'm always looking for moments when my opponent is like 1 mana short or fetching in these sort of ways where you can really like surgically slice in with your interaction. Looks like Joseph not going to get punished here, but there could have been that moment, could have been that window. Oh, and Mike looks like he does have it. No. Oh, Mike, we got to chat. We got to chat. We're going to chat. We're going to chat after this, Mike. Perfect, 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 perfect. So,
well, that was
all of Joseph's turn. And now the question is does Mike have access to a card that's going to answer this Drifter or a new card type or a Bolt?
I mean, he can't have anything. He's just dead on board, right? 10?
Oh, 10, yeah, we to fetch. You're
Yeah.
right. Yeah, 2/5/5s come a rumbling. Joseph looks down, Joseph looks up,
Yeah.
scoops them up perfectly sized and timing on these two Goyfs, holding up just those extra pieces of interaction. And, I mean, that's the game for Mike, taking it down here with this Grixis Murktide. Game number 1. It looks like your classic Frog deck. We had just had Express Federation off that red splash, though.
All right, now let's see an example deck. With
There's a lot of decks like this going around, but you're going to see the classic blue-black Murktide shell, things like Frog, Murktide, Bowmaster, cantrips, counterspells, interaction. And we know for a fact that these expressive iterations are going to be here as at least part of that red splash. I got to imagine there's other pieces, such as these bolts or maybe unholy heats, that we'll have to see from Mike as we play through these games. Some example cards on the board, things like Obsidian Charmaw. People are getting real scared of Amulet and Tron right now. I've seen as many as 4 Charmaws on people's boards. This example has 3 Consigned Memory, 2 Stern Scolding, a Surgical, some Pyroclasms, card making a Resurgence with a reprint and Standard, Invert Polarity, Toxic Deluge, Nile, Spellbomb, and Dress Down. So we are fighting this kind of controlling style matchup, but the important part will be recognizing what cards your opponent has played to try to guess about the rest of the build of their deck. So if you're Mike, you at least saw Dress Down out of your opponent and Jeskai mana available. So I have to assume Flage exists.
yes.
Which means if I have Surgicals, if I have Spell Bombs, if I have Soul Guy Lantern, whatever your graveyard hate of choice is, you're going to want it here so that you don't have to deal with Flage. Additionally, the rest of what's here
Doesn't seem that great.
invert polarity if you're nasty like that and you want to just see if you're going to get got or not. And sometimes I know people playing against Jeskai will also bring in their Charmaws to sometimes deal with cards like Manamo, just so that your Jeskai opponent doesn't completely bury you in their value.
That makes sense.
So sometimes there are options like that, but I imagine Mike's job is to kind of make sure you can sit behind a queen, whether it's your Murktide, your Frogs, and the like, and just try to survive and bring in just some light graveyard interaction, any extra counter spells they might have.
And let's just imagine the Jeskai.
Sure. So the Jeskai Dress Down deck is going to be very similar to, we saw Aether Spikes for the counter magic. We're going to see things like the Galvanic just Discharge, Wrath of the Skies, Dress Down, Flage, Solitudes. So, and the Ring. So a lot of these cards that are in your classic control shell, cards that they're going to have in the sideboard, so they don't need to sideboard Consigned Memories because they already have them in the main. The question will be is how much of the cute cards of this deck will they still have in post board, right? How many of their Dress Downs? How many of their Consigns? Do you really need all of these tools to try to fight that game, or can you play your cards straight up? Should you side out all your Null Drifters? Probably. But so we'll have to see.
Mean? It drew 2 cards.
It sure did. It drew true cards. It ate a single permanent, and then you died because you spent so much of your time and energy on your little 4/4 that could. So we'll have to see. Joseph, I imagine, will have some classic controlling pieces, might have their own graveyard hate. This is kind of that question where, say, if you're Joseph and you have Surgical, I would not bring Surgical in. But if I have Relic of Regenis, Soul Guide, whatever, Nile Spellbomb, those I would bring in because you want to always temper the ability to give Frogs flying, your opponent's ability to get Delirium if you think they might have DRC or Unholy Heats, and your opponent's ability to play out that Murktide. So if Joseph's got him, we probably brought them in. And then same thing of kind of customizing. If we've got cards like maybe Stern Scolding, you can imagine that would hit Frog, Bowmaster, DRCs if your opponent has them. So we'll have to kind of see what cards seem out of place. Like I see Joseph drawing a Mystical Dispute. Got to be a sideboard card. Celestial Purge. That one's a sideboard card.
Definitely.
But really good pieces. Looks like Joseph might just be a little light on mana, and that choice is up to him if he's going to keep one of those kind of hands.
I don't see any mana in Michael's hand. I saw double Frog.
Okay, well, the double Frog hands are the busted hands. Michael might just be doing the classic waiting for your opponent to decide on their 7 and then snapping yours away. And Joseph, we have our 2 lands. One is a Meticulous Archive, as well as having cards like Dress Down. So, and Joseph kept, Michael kept, and we're starting with this archive and binning to Feathery into the graveyard.
No.
To
Put
feath-
some respect
to
on his name.
To feathery into the graveyard. And Mike at least had this steam vent, so whether we saw this one or not, it's here. And we do have
The
DRC.
DRC.
Yes, Michael. Dude, I think the red splash on this is so good of just getting like Bolt, Heat, DRC, and the big in expressive iteration. Those are good cards.
Shoot, seems to be working out right now.
This is the start, right? Steam Vents, Shock, DRC, Mishra's Bobble. Like we this start got memed for a long time. Perfect. Remembering that bobble trigger. I'm loving it. Mike, you're on your game today. Joseph. And I think these are the two lands that we saw him start with. Drawing, ooh, a beautiful full art card. I think it's an Arena of Glory, which is, also one that if you got Charmaz on your board, you might want to bring in against your Jeskai opponent. Arena, Manamo, those are cards I definitely want to knock those out.
A hasty Charmal.
Ooh.
Can be scary.
My current goal is to haste the Sign of Draco. Yeah.
Is one of his keywords not haste?
Not haste, but it will be. As Mike here getting a fetch land down, so this is at least starting to get us closer and closer to Delirium. Looks like we're fetch shocking. What could we be trying to do with 2 mana? It's gotta be Frog, right? It's gotta be Frog.
Has to be Frog.
And then we're just gonna figure out what piece does Joseph have: Spell Snare, Mystical Dispute, or Stern Scolding? Which one's gonna ruin your day? We know the answer, but Mike doesn't. Mike's gotta find out.
What if he's just gonna spike again?
Thoughtseize?
Oh, never mind.
I love Thoughtseize makes you feel so smart and handsome. And if Mike surveils here and hits one of the types he doesn't have, that's Delirium on this DRC. Man, are people not playing DRC Thoughtseize? This is great.
It seems bad. It seems okay.
Which way is it? What do you think it feels?
I mean, it's well, now it's a Celestial Purge.
Boo. But that means so this DRC got to eat 2 mana out of Joseph.
And 2 cards.
And 2 cards. And we get to mill over these islands. This island out of Joseph. So now, okay.
So you take the ring.
You take the ring. You take the ring. We will all understand this. The dress down, very minimal effect right now. The dispute and consign, now that you know that they're there, you can play around them. But this is your only chance to tag this ring. You are a blue-black deck. You're not going to be able to deal with the One Ring. Take it now.
What?
This means that Mike is going to try to use Counterspell to push through, or just pray that Joseph never draws a 4th land. Those are strats.
I don't know if I'd risk that.
Oh, I thought this was the 3rd bobble of the game, but we had 2 game 1. Now it's 2 game 2 here. Quick peek. Passing it back. I wonder if Mike's holding up like a Spell Pierce or something with this 1 remaining mana. Because remember, we fetched Shocked to set up the mana for this turn, so we got uses for it. And now Joseph drew that Aether Spike. Big rips, Mike?
Go land Frog?
Oh, yeah. Mike knows the hand now. That's true. And we held up a piece of 1-mana interaction last turn. We're going to hold it up again. And now Joseph's going to try to spike this. And now we're going to figure out what 1-mana interaction Michael has to fight back with. It just works. Just works. Because Michael knew that Joseph only had the 1 draw step to find a way to interact with this frog. Turns out it was one that will work.
I mean, at least he has a cantrip. You can just cast Stress down.
Yes, Joseph will do that, but here's our 4th mana. Here it comes. Was the ring? Oh, yeah. Now the question is, Mike, do you have Consign or Pierce? Or Force, but I would 2-for-1 myself to stop the ring, but if I don't have to, that's good too. Oh, we got those beautiful Solitudes out of Joseph. Those are the MH3 promo ones? They made them all over again, y'all. They just did them one more time. Run it back around.
Dude, they keep reprinting everything into the ground.
Which is, smart.
It's smart. And nice art this time, though.
Yeah. Get the cards into the hands of the people. And then buy them at nerdragegaming.com. Boom. Plug. No problem. So, Joseph, do we fetch and then pass the turn back?
I mean, he doesn't want to go play into it. I guess.
Smart, right? There's a reason Michael didn't take it. But also, why did we just fetch shock then? Frog. So, all the cards in your hand can't currently interact with it. Dress down to cantrip. Yeah, maybe. Negative. And now dress down to cantrip. Also, another card really good to haste with your arena, Psychic Frog. Oh, yeah.
You know what?
I think Arena is highly underplayed right now. It is mostly just paired up with Flage, but there's a lot of cards I'd like to give haste to.
Wait, can you haste up a Psychic Frog?
You can haste up. Oh no, you can't. This sucks. It doesn't even cost red mana. All right, can I haste my DRC? Haste up 2 DRCs. Galvanic Discharge taking down that frog. Mike not willing to spend any cards from hand. This is a very important matchup, card for card. And Mike knows exactly what cards Joseph does have.
Top deck's a land.
But Mike's been holding up this 1 mana all game. All game. So you got to be afraid of something. The question is, you don't know which something. And there are so many pieces of 1 mana blue interaction right now.
I think he might just have to fire it off if he waits any longer.
Yeah, the thing is, Joseph is basically out of gas. This consign means close to nothing against your Grixis opponent. And this ring is the only thing you have. We're firing it off. Mike, what do you have? Yep, yep. Snap tap that land. It's consign. Right. We brought in our own consigns. Very funny that Joseph is playing consigns in his deck to proactively and reactively use them. And Mike also finds that piece of interaction important to stop Joseph of the things that he is trying to do. So good fun times all around there. And we can see it looks like another Celestial Purge as Joseph's going through the deck. So we know... Oh, and Static Prison? That's really cool out of your Jeskai deck.
I mean, it's just a good way to get some energy going.
Yeah, Joseph has a much bigger energy package between... We've seen the Static Prison, Wrath of the Skies, Aether Spike, Galvanic Discharge. Might even have Tune the Narrative. Don't know if they have space or not. But really leaning on having energy.
He really needs to top deck something to get himself back into this game.
Did the Magic player classic of draw your hand and immediately shuffle it so fast nobody can see it? Oh? Uh-oh? That looks like Flage Mana to me. Are you activating? Yes. The Null Drifter. The Null Drifter.
Coming in clutch. Let's get that hand going.
Yeah, coming in clutch. As what's really fun about this card is if you stack your trigger correctly, you can draw the 2 cards to try to draw the consign. We just know that Joseph already has it.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Dude, wait, oh, replicate it. Replicate. Wait, replicate it. Replicate it. Hit both parts. Hit both parts. Please. Please, my man.
Maybe he's not doing it?
This is why consign is so good. We're judge checking. We're judge checking. We're judge checking.
Probably checking about the replicate part.
Yes. Or is this actually a colorless card?
Which, for the devoid.
Yeah. All very important things to make sure and check. Our judge is all the way up at the front of the store, so Mike's going to take a quick walk. Come on back. We can see him back there. There he goes. And you will not believe it. You see stacks on stacks on stacks on cards there in Michael's screen. Duskmorn quickly approaches. EnderRageGaming.com should be all listed up there. You can wish list the cards that you're looking for in order to purchase them, have them ready. They become legal now on pre-release date. Day 1, if you're playing the pre-release, I call it card in hand legality. If you can get a hold of the card starting this Friday, you can play the card.
What card are you most excited for?
Okay, so this is never fair because the cards I'm usually most excited for are the alt arts of cards I already have. Because the cards I'm the most excited for is the full art Archon of Cruelty and the full art Goryo's Vengeance.
Doesn't surprise me. Yep. I forgot about those 2.
And here's this counterspell to fight against the consign because it looked like Joseph was trying to hit the sacrifice trigger while Michael was trying to hit the draw triggers. We're getting it all taken care of here. Michael used actual factual counterspell to fight back that MC Chicago Promo. Oh, and Joseph was doing it with the arena. We were trying to haste it out there on top of everything else. Because we had the consign for the sacrifice trigger, and we could have came in for 4 damage, hasted Annihilator 1, and really start eating up Michael's mana.
But now we're just sitting here, neither having a threat to actually play.
There's that Unholy Heat confirming even deeper into the red splash there for Michael. Surveil Land, good. If you're not drawing good spells, at least start filtering through. Bobble. Remember, Michael's got Murktide in his deck, so if he can find them, be off to the races.
Top card. Another one.
Oh, yeah, it is another Null Drifter. So, like I was saying here, so if Joseph stacks this right, you can draw the 2 cards from the cast trigger, and if either of these are consigned, Joseph could consign the sacrifice trigger when it does come into play. They are not. It is Static Prison, and I believe another Drifter, so we're full drifting. Get a Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift in here. That was pretty good.
It was.
It
was a call.
A little hamstrung, a little forced on that one. Here's a note. We're drifting again. We're drifting. Mike's looks like they got 2 cards in hand. We're using the arena again.
And Ring Land.
Yeah, Ring Solitude. So
Solitude.
that's A-okay. The thing is, we didn't really draw lands if you're Joseph, but still got to cash in your 3-mana draw 2. And Michael on to have a full 5 mana and quickly pass the turn back.
All right, just start jamming spells until one sticks.
Yep, there's the land that Joseph needed. Remember, there's always the importance of these controlling style back and forths of the importance of drawing lands, just continue to have more and more mana for when the eventual counterspell war begins. You want to have more cards, more mana, so you can start that fight. This is quick Murktide mana, isn't it? Expressive iteration. Counterspell, other card. All right. Nethergoyf. Great exile. And then probably that counterspell in the hand, and we're set up.
Casting Goyf.
Sizing on this Goyf is huge. Instant sorcery, artifact, land, creature. Sorcery? We said sorcery. So this is a 5/6. Huge. Oh. Quick fetch here for Joseph. That's what I was talking about before, right? Fetching before you begin the fight over a card to make sure you have access to all your mana. Getting that plains. This is the MH3 plains, right?
Yeah.
The Eldrazi, you're having like a Titan-style battle in the back there.
The good old Kaiju land.
Kaiju, yeah, that's a great way to put it. Michael there, counting that domain. Add in a land. Add in your land. For your Delirium, there you go, 5/6.
Hardcast Solitude.
Oh, yeah, it does sure. Oh, that's right. We knew that Joseph drew that. Great answer to this Goy. And allowing Joseph, for the first time in a while, it feels, an actual factual threat. Counterspell counters it. And now Joseph has the ring and this Aether Spike. And another Null
Drifter. Let's go.
I mean, the Null Drifters, the Annihilator one could be very important because Michael just has so few actual permanents. But here's the ring. Here's Force Pitch Spell Snare. And then Spike. Aether Spike. And Joseph being able to float energy off this too because Michael has no mana to be able to pay. So Joseph had 1 energy, gains 2 from the spike, only has to spend 1 because Michael does not have any remaining mana, and gets a net energy there into Joseph's energy reserve, I believe it's called.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Great, sounds good. Another iteration. Michael, these are great ways to start all of your turns. That's a spell. Pierce. I know that, Pierce. And arranging that mana around. Remember, there's ring protection for Joseph casting this, so this Goyf's not going to quite get through just yet. Exiled card is Thoughtseize. Mike, we can't Thoughtseize. Mike, we can't do it.
Yeah, he's
Mike, we can't
casted it to the air.
Mike, we can't do it.
To himself?
We can't do it. We can't do it.
Don't fully commit to this. Okay, he's just going to leave it.
Okay, yeah. Leaving it in exile. And then preordainin. Looking at, I think, land, sink into stupor. Both go to the bottom.
Don't need any of those.
Yeah, now what this is about. Drawn with the ring. This should be where Joseph starts taking over once you start reaching recall levels of the ring. You got 12 to work with. Michael's got this 5, 6.
I mean, he hasn't seen many threats other than Null Drifters.
Right. Yeah, but at least we've made our way through all the Null Drifters. And Joseph right now is doing a habit that I need to break myself of like going to play a land before I've decided that I'm going to do so, indicating that I have a land in hand, and then swapping it for another one, indicating 2 cards in my hand. Which,
Free information.
yeah, the little tells like that can go a long way, and I gotta break that habit. I gotta break it. Right, that's right. We got no drift. We're drifting for days. So, like I was saying before, this is a cast trigger, but the evoke enters the battlefield trigger. So we're allowed to draw these cards, and if we had drawn a consign or a dress down, we would have been able to respond in that window before the creature entered the battlefield. Did not have it this time, but that is always an option available. And Joseph has now drawn Fledge and a Static Prison. And because we've netted all this energy for Joseph over these turns, this prison has 4 turns available to it. The 2 from it entering and 2 that we banked for spikes over this game can really make or break the difference of Michael being 4 turns away from getting this threat back.
So do you think he has an answer for the Fledge?
No. I sure don't. There's plenty of fuel to feed it. So Mike needs pretty desperately in this next draw step to draw whatever the hate for the graveyard may have been. Because this is oh my god, it's Lightning Helix. For 3 mana, this part's not the impressive part of the Fledge. The impressive part is if we escape it, and if we arena it, we can get as much as 12 damage to Mike's dome.
Oh, jeez, he's dead next turn.
Right. The arena Fledge is so much damage. Because you get an ETB, and then an attack, and then it being a 6/6.
Oh, it looks like he exerted it this turn?
Must have been on old Drifty.
Oh, just to see if he could hit it. Sure.
Yeah, he's exerted it on the Drifter every time. Ring and Fledge, match made in heaven. Going digging even deeper. Fledge gained us 3 life, which is all the damage we've taken from the ring so far.
Another Fledge in a forest.
Little Flage. And look at that. Do we have... Mike's like, yep, got it. No problem. We're done. We're going to be able to go to game number 3. Michael, this is the first time Michael has seen the Fledge this matchup. So if we did not bring in the Graveyard Hate the first time, I sure would be bringing it in now. And this is, I think, a very purposeful showing of, I think, how these decks play out. The Jeskai deck has a much better long game, that they're just trying to get there. And the Grixis deck or your classic Murktide decks need to start applying pressure as soon as possible. Things like these Goyfs, these DRCs, these Frogs. And with Michael being on the play, Michael's going to have just a beat faster to try to push those things through, which Michael will need to do before Jeskai can get their feet under them, start ringing, flaging, and the likes, and really taking away the late game. And we saw just enough from Joseph, piece of interaction, while Michael was trying to find stuff, getting that frog countered early on.
He just couldn't draw another threat. He had 2 frogs, and they just couldn't go the distance.
Right. And was this the same game that we thought seized and did not take the ring?
Yes. No.
Yeah.
Game 1? No,
It's hard to remember.
Had to be this one.
Yeah. So, and I always say, some mistakes you only make once. We saw Michael exile that Thoughtseize, trying to gain that value on that ring turn, and then realizing too late that was exiled on us. So a couple little hiccups in there, but that should make this game 3 perfect as they're all ready to rock and roll. And Michael's doing a little bit of shuffling here. I did notice if we went back into the sideboard real quick to grab any of that graveyard hate. But the only way to find out is to play the game. Let's have a nice clean fight. Strong 7s, strong 7s. Mike's got lands, force, Goyf, DRC, and we need like a good interactive piece as that 7th card. Joseph, we're looking at a couple of lands: Celestial Purge, Static Prison, Aether Spike, Consign.
It's very reactive.
Very reactive and only 2 lands, which can sometimes be a little. It's 3 lands. Oh, it's 3 lands, 4 interactive spells. Joseph, snapskis on that. My only concern is typically you want to get 3 lands to surveil here and there to start getting your footing under you, not relying on your draw steps. Because if you got the lands, you'll find the rest. And Mike not liking that one, tossing it on back. I said that 7th card needed to be a good one. Must not have been. Very important. He's got to get his feet under him. Or this Just Guy deck, if you give it enough time, will just run away with it.
How many Murktides is a Just Grixis deck running nowadays?
3 to 4 Murktides. I think 3 is at least stock, and the 4th one is depending on just how deep you're going. I imagine trying to find room for all these DRCs and the like, we might just have the 3 Murktides. Which, which is incredible. Wow.
It's already looking better.
Yeah, this hand's clean and cheap. Things like Frog, Preordain, an Expressive Iteration.
It's pondering on it.
Right. Not in this format. We're preordaining this hand. Tossing that to the bottom. Rock and roll. Remember, Mike here on the play. Game number 3 for all the marbles. Watery Grave for Preordain. For the Goyf.
Just a
0-1. Just a 0-1. Mike got the die out and everything went. Oh wait, it's 0-1. It's an 0-1. But that means next turn, if Michael fetches, plays Preordain, starts interacting and playing the game, this Goyf could get big fast. And there's that Delta, like I said, getting that first start here. Fetch Shocking, getting access to all mana online. As you can see, double blue, hold up counterspell, as well as that red and that black splash for a piece of interaction. Let's push this frog.
And swing for 1.
Unless you want to discard to the frog, but I don't recommend that right now. Oh, yep, okay. Swinging for 1, and then Joseph fetching. Looks like it'd be 18 all around for Joseph starting turn number 2 here. And we know Joseph has a Static Prison. But it's so early in the game, and with no energy reserves for Joseph yet, that Prison might not be enough that if we answer this frog or this Goyf, it might just still come back 2 turns from now.
Now, which one would you answer?
Okay, that's a great question. So I'm a Just Guy opponent. The frog, because frog draws cards.
I was thinking the Goyf because it just grows quicker.
Yeah, sure grows quicker. So if I'm a Just Guy opponent, am I more scared of a large threat or a small one that draws cards? This is a great question. Joseph, I look forward to your answer. But Joseph also drew a Celestial Purge. That's an actual factual remove. And a Solitude. We might pitch the Prison to the Solitude and try to clean up as much as possible. Oh, yep. That grows the Goyf just a little. I always think Purge exiles. It's destroy, right? Or exile.
I haven't read this card in forever.
Super important to the sizing of this Goyf, so we're just going to make sure.
It exiles.
Great. I'm going to go check on them real quick.
Yeah. Don't think it mattered too much on the other game. Getting the realization.
They spotted it.
Oh, okay.
I walked out there like right as the card was being exiled, and they're like, "Oh, we got it." I'm like, "Oh, man." But we're all good. Looks like that Goyf rumbled on in. So, very importantly for Joseph here, spike, consign, ring, dress down, another spike. And holding up the mana here, right? So, continue to have access to these Aether spikes, maybe a consign if it comes up. But Joseph kind of on the hunt for lands. So many spells to cast. I want to have the lands to cast them. Michael here setting up, getting a sewers, getting that surveil on. What's fun about having this Goyf in play and surveilling is if the card's good, great news. And if the card's bad, it grows your Goyf.
True.
It's great to set yourself up with scenarios in your game for it to be win-wins. Anytime where I'm happy with any draw step, happy with any result, that's a good spot to be in.
Now he's firing off expressive.
Yeah, Mike also might be on the hunt for lands.
Unholy Land and something.
See the same thing as a blue mana Mishra's Bauble. So exile that. Play that on out. This is a card that's going to grow the Goyf for Mike. Take a peek at Joseph's top card. And yep, grows that Goyf one more. I know the land was a Flooded Strand, so Mike took the land Bauble. So I don't remember what that third card was. It was Heat. We decided not to take the Heat, pitch that to the bottom. And now this Goyf 3 power, thanks to this artifact. Really starting to apply some pressure. Interesting that, so this is a dress down on end step to cycle and hope that Joseph draws his good interactive pieces.
It's good to bait out counters too.
Yeah. But we could have used it in combat as a fog if we wanted, right? Because the Goyf would have lost its abilities. So Joseph prioritizing trying to get his scam elements online, right? His dress down effects, doing it at end step, as opposed to doing it during some point of Michael's turn. And now here's the prison.
Hopefully it sticks, giving it a second read.
Right, just gotta make sure on this one. The part that I think gets me the most about modern Magic right now is the reemergence of Spell Snare. Just like every card being a good 2-drop. And all these blue decks having this card Spell Snare and just always trading up 1 mana, right? Your 1-drop will always get a 2-drop. And finding out that it's just not that narrow anymore. It's hitting cards out of every deck.
So it does look like he has a response. Did you see what was in his hand?
It's consigned on the ETB trigger.
Ugh.
Mwah. And here's the spike, which is going to allow floating energy again, which is now going to elongate how long this prison's going to be able to stick around. Mike figured it out that there is that moment, that window of the ETB of the prison that could be consigned, but Joseph just had one more additional piece to fight back. Mike, you start every turn with iteration. It looks so good. Mind you, again, Mike and I were playing Blue-Black Frog this weekend. He said, I really missed the red cards, and these iterations have been doing such heavy lifting this game.
Now, I saw a DRC. Do you think he's going to keep it?
We need something, right? So I always call these strategies protect the queen, right? You need a threat in play that you can start riding for damage while doing all your interacting. And if Mike is still lacking one, getting one for 1 mana when you already have Delirium, but no red source, because we used our 1 red source for the iteration.
Might have put it in hand, but I don't even see it, I don't think.
Right. And this face-up Spell Pierce, so that won't be doing anything. That's just exiled away. Kind of indicating that there were 2 cards in that pile that Mike did not want, and there is a DRC in hand, so it looks like we might have grabbed that. Joseph, we're drifting. So I was saying before, Joseph's been stuck at these 3 lands that we might just drift to try to fix the mana woes here. And I say woes in that we're missing land drops, not in that our mana is working poorly. But it's going to come a time where Joseph's going to want to start double spelling, and we need those lands.
He just passed?
Just passed.
Oh, no.
So, guaranteeing them that land drop, but holding up the piece of interaction. And here's another. Nether Goyf? Are you right? These ones are Nether?
Yeah.
Because there's the unplayable 5-drop Goyf.
Boro Goyf?
Well, there's one from MH2, like Necro Goyf, that's like really bad, but then there's Nether Goyf, which is really good. The name is mixed up. Here's that spike. And because Joseph already had 2 energy floating, can go up to 4, and then could pay 3 energy into this to try to drain Mike's mana. But that would also mean we'd have less energy for paying for the prison, which is where the other Goyf is hiding.
It's going to try to make him tap down to 1.
And is the Is the energy paid upon resolution?
I think it's the same thing like the wheel. You go to cast it, and then you choose on resolution. Yeah.
Right, which means if Joseph has chosen a number, it has resolved, and that Goyf did in fact get countered. But that's what I'm saying. The prison's going to use the last of this energy. Joseph dealt with one Goyf, but if Joseph doesn't net some energy, the other one's going to come right back. Fourth land off the top, just in time for when Joseph needs it.
Let's go drifting.
We're drifting. We're trying to scam. It looks like Joseph has the consign in hand already, so doesn't even need to try to draw it. And then ETB trigger, counter it. And now, not hasted. We saw Joseph trying to use the arena to haste this up every turn they had it last game. But not this time, not today. But this 4-4, I did talking some smack about the Null Drifter, but the Annihilator 1, I think, is the part that's hardest for Michael. Just having 4 lands, maybe 5, and those being the things that card starts eating will really add up on you. When I was playing Tron in the pre-MH3 era, I was playing Elder Deep Fiend and just hard casting that thing as a good card to cast. I might just be hard casting Null Drifters as just 7-mana draw twos. You just gotta do what you gotta do sometimes. And you can put that card under an Ugin's Labyrinth, no problem.
Yeah. It's just a free slot.
Just tuck it away for later. Joseph finding a 5th land as well as looks like a land when we drifted earlier. So Mana Woes, those are gone, but now Michael is applying a lot of pressure in play. But it is the ring. Mike, do you have last card Force and Negation to eat this ring?
Well, now you gotta find an answer quick.
And that Surveil from this DRC. We know that we have at least Delirium because of the Goyf. And the question is just how big. 4, grab that land. 5. So that's 8 damage coming across. I'm loving this.
2 turns, 2 top dogs.
How have they not made a pretty version of Dragon Rage Channeler? This is unacceptable.
Because Monastery Swiftspear exists.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine if they made the Swiftspear Store Champ promo DRCs?
Man, I'd play that. So
right,
fast.
people would have been there in flocks. But lo and behold, we got these ones. The Eternal Weekend does not count. There's only 8 of those. The art was pretty gorgeous. And here comes that big swing for 8 damage. When Joseph down to 5. Which also means, typically one of the good draws for this deck is drawing the ring. Such little life to work with. So now instead, Joseph's really on the hunt for Flage.
He's going to try to slam another ring.
Michael, how goes your draw step? How goes the draw step? Sure. Resolved ring. Which will stem the bleeding for this turn. But Joseph really needs to start scraping something together because it'll still be lethal next turn. Static Prison.
I wouldn't have done that. I would have just waited to see what my top deck was.
Interesting, right? You know you're at least safe because of the ring. But also, I think if your ring resolves, you know your prison's going to resolve too. Which I think might also just be pushing it through now while you can.
Yeah, just to bank the energy for Wrath.
Yeah. And Joseph's hand is land and force, so Mike's clear for takeoff. He just doesn't know it yet. Not a lot of haste threats out of this deck, but maybe ring protection, so none of it will even matter. Can't even bobble our opponent because of that ring protection. The ring is still protected, but that DRC must attack. And then the question is, I always forget, Nethergoyf has escape. You just have to exile Delirium from your yard to escape it. So that might be what Mike's looking at, is trying to figure out maintaining Delirium while also exiling it to escape this Goyf. Showing that's Delirium, instant sorcery, land artifact, and escaping the Nethergoyf. I forget the card can do this. It's most of the time just a 1-mana 4/5.
I don't think I've ever played against another Goyf.
And this still maintains instant sorcery, land artifact. So Michael maintains Delirium while doing this. Pretty good.
Now he's back on track to win next turn.
Right, just applying threats, and Joseph drawing with this ring. Mad Lad. Going down to 4. Paying for that prison. Life total precarious, hanging in the balance, because now you have to answer both of these creatures because Joseph will die to their own ring if either of these two connect.
Didn't find it, I don't think.
We got a discharge sitting in the back of the hand here for Joseph, at least. And a dress down, and the dress down can set the Goyf to 0 power. So we got the Galvanic Discharge to take out the DRC. Loving this. One, because we don't even have enough energy to try to kill the Goyf. But 2, it's going to pair perfectly with our dress down so that we don't have to take damage from this Goyf. Of the Nether variety. And that's a creature in the bin, so this is now a lethal threat once again. And Joseph has, I believe, Force Blue card. Exactly our 3 cards are dress down Force Blue card to try to survive this turn. And Mike also has Force Blue card. But it's their turn, so we can just hard cast that Force. Joseph says, how about this dress down? Yeah, Mike's realizing this is a rough moment.
I think you just let this go.
Yep, okay. Joseph gets the cantrip from it. Yep, Michael's just got to pass the turn back. That dress down sacrifices itself. But Joseph goes down to 2 thanks to this ring and pays our final energy to keep this static prison around. Hanging on by a thread. This is why playing Jeskai terrifies me. These situations, you're just hanging on. We're going Flage hunting. I saw Joseph has an arena in hand. Joseph needs to find a Flage.
Flage or a replacement?
How about a Null Drifter? How about an Null Drifter?
Get the one hasty swing in there. Come on.
Oh, how about a Null Drifter? Now, if Joseph had drawn a consign, you also could consign the trigger to make the 1 ring deal you damage. But I don't believe Joseph has a consign either. Joseph's going to use this Null Drifter here, still on the hunt for Flage. 2 cards coming in hot. Purge and Flage. Purge and Flage.
Seems good to me. Shoot.
This Flage. So we can use the arena, and then do we have a consign?
I don't think he
There's no consign. Okay, so we can't consign the sacrifice trigger to keep it.
But he can stay alive.
But he can stay alive. Because no. Still die. Still die. Because this Goyf is still here.
So he has to. Oh, no, he doesn't have it.
So what's gonna happen is probably purge this Goyf, untap, use the ring, dig deep for consign to counter your own ring trigger.
That's a line.
That is a line, because if all of that works out for Joseph, you then have Flage stuff available to you. Oh. You will die. If you take this line, you will die, Joseph. And I don't know you like that. I'm very sorry to cryptically say you will die, but that's not a winning line. This is it. Yes. Must purge this Goyf. Now, the part is we believe Mike has this Force of Negation. Hard cast it. No, Goyf is gone. The Goyf is gone.
Chose not to fight.
Joseph living out a prayer with this. Oh, living out a prayer. No haste threats out of Michael's deck either. So even something like a Bowmaster won't be quite enough. The ring's going to do all the work on its own.
He doesn't have a 1 of Ragavan?
No, I don't think so. That'd be such a fun way to go. Mike here, I think, job is to hold up as much interaction as possible. And Joseph, like I said, we're going to try to dig deep on this ring to try to find consign. Mike using enough stuff to fight back. Is this Murktide? Oh,
he made an appearance.
In the final moments here, might be time for the Lurkin Mercantide. Eating 4. 4 spells. 4 spells. Land. And remember, if all of this goes poorly, the static prison's going to crack, and Michael's going to get back the Nethergoyf too. So on top of everything else that is happening, including this Murktide. Oh boy, oh boy. So Joseph could fire off this Aether Spike to try to float some energy to keep the prison. Because, Mike, are you interested in paying the 2?
Has to be real tempting to pay the 2.
Right, so what happens is when this spell resolves, Joseph is going to choose an energy amount. And Joseph's choosing the full 2, and we're going to let that Murktide go, right? Because we just need to survive. We need to make sure this ring does not do what it needs to do. Just going to float the ring trigger. Yes, we're doing it. We're doing it. Dig deep, dig deep. 4 cards. Not consign, not consign, not consign, not consign. That's game. Woo! Joseph, thank you for putting on a little bit of fireworks there at the end to try to get the goods. But Michael taking it down there with Grixis Murktide. 2 games to 1. Thank you all so much for joining us for this round number 1. I know it was a long one, but that means we're going to be flipping it over to round number 2 ASAP. Please don't go anywhere. We'll see y'all in just a few minutes. Bye. everybody, and welcome back. I was not kidding. We were getting it turned around that fast. Our feature match was the last match of round number 1. So welcome to our round number 2 here on week 3, season 3 of the Nerd Rage Gaming home store. We've got 2 friends from the Kenosha crew duking it out here. These fine folks can't make it out to all of our energy events, but we love when they do here on the local circuit. Don on the left side, playing your classic Dimir Frogtide. And Cat's borrowing my deck. This is my deck. These are my cards. Cat is playing this brew that I've been working on. Cat wanted to play it. It is a Dimir Goryo's deck. So it says Goryo's here, but it is fully Dimir. It is going to function just like this Dimir Frogtide deck, but goes way bigger on trying to get my queen, my girl, Atraxa Grain Unifier into play. I'm Dom Striker with Bryce Jones, and here we go, turn number 1.
Banning a Bitter Triumph?
Heck yeah, Bitter Triumph. This is my Shoot the Sheriff that allows you to discard Atraxa. So, under City Sewers for both players, this is going to be a fun back and forth Dimir matchup. But Cat on the play gets a slam this turn 2 frog.
Having the first frog feels real good.
Yes. The first frog and the frogs even got a little bit of food already from the Surveil for trying to gain these flying triggers. Land. Don, try to push this frog. Try to push that frog.
And it's gone.
And it's gone. Cat here drawing it up. Turn number 3, picking up a counterspell. There's a single land in this whole deck that can't cast counterspell. Can you guess which one it is?
Is it the swamp?
It sure is that swamp. Because you got to hold on to your basic just in case. But what about drawing the double frog hand here for Cat? They are going to play it out and then a sink into stupor on its land side. The first frog got answered. The question now is, can you answer the second one? We're bolting this in. Cat is holding up some sort of interaction. Looks to be Essence Flux. Bryce, are you familiar with Essence Flux?
No, can't say I've read that card.
So, Essence Flux, 1 blue mana, flicker a card. If it is a spirit, draw a card. So this is, I believe, because I searched far and wide, the only blue flicker. And we're going to see it here. Yes, Don, yes.
Oh my goodness.
So, this card is here to allow you to scam your Atraxas, right? This is an ephemerate that actually functions in a Dimir mana base. Additionally, it's a card that pitches to your subtleties and your force of negations, because what I found was happening is because I don't have Phalanges or Solitudes in this deck, the rebound on ephemerate I typically didn't want because I wanted to attack with my Atraxa. So now I've cashed in for an actual factual blue card that's doing the same purpose without the rebound.
And it helps you just dodge pushes, apparently.
Yes, it's good for dodging pushes on your frogs. I've used it to reuse my subtleties, so there's a little bit of that extra spice. And Cat here feeding a Scalding Tarn to this frog. I think a 2-power frog is far more intimidating than the 1-power. Gives just enough to kind of start applying that pressure. Don sneaking in this Bowmaster. Not sure if it's in response to the trigger or before blocking.
No.
There's a lot of times that it could be.
Making them pitch another card.
Push the Bowmasters. So this must be to make sure that Cat can get the draw trigger off this frog without being punished too hard. And we see a click of the button of getting that draw trigger off that frog. Perfectly drawing this tap land in Undercity Sewers. And Cat continuing to churn through the deck. And that was a quick mill. That felt like a quick Atraxa mill, but it's just off screen, so there's no way to know. It was. When you see a Surveil that fast, you know what it is. You know what it be. Oh.
So what made you put frogs in your Goryos?
It's a standalone threat that allows you to also discard Atraxas that you draw from your hand, right? So this takes over for a lot of your really bad 2-mana looting spells. You now get to have a standalone threat in Psychic Frog that then can also get incredibly powerful later, allowing you to discard your Atraxa. It's really good if you ever cheat in a Grizzlebrand and draw a whole bunch of cards and pitch them straight into your frog and then just kill your opponent outright.
Oh.
And it allows a backup plan. So having a card like Frog is it's a graveyard card, but it's not graveyard fully reliant, right? It allows you can still discard it and try to get its draw triggers. So what I like about it is even if your opponents are trying to attack your graveyard, try to attack you, it's very difficult to try to keep in Fatal Push when your opponent is also trying to Atraxa you. Like, it's this real thin needle that they have to walk when they are your opponent, and now we're seeing this Psychic Frog jumping on into the skies.
Will they make it bigger though? I don't think so. Got some good
Yeah.
cards in hand.
That's why I said, like, I feel like it's really good to get your Frog to 2 power. It's an actual threat. You can start slowly pushing damage and pushing damage. And if your opponent ever hiccups, sometimes you just dump your whole hand and finish the game. Done. Doing a quick fetch here. I see 2 Undercity Sewers already in play for Don. So we see getting a Watery Grave here out of getting available Surveil lands. The standard, industry standard for these Dimir decks, 2 of them. Cat is playing 3 because you got a lot of Atraxas you want to mill. So just add just a little bit more value in doing it with this Dimir Goryo's version. And down a little action on end step as well. Consider the spell Snare. Remember Snare? Really good at hitting Frog, really, really good at hitting Goryo's, and really, really good at hitting Counterspell. So a card that Don's definitely be able to use and trade up on mana no matter what. Getting this Assassin's Creed Island, I would say the second best island from Assassin's Creed, but that's just me. And here's the Murktide.
How big was this Murktide going to be? Like
3 spell, 4 spell, 4 spell.
Not bad.
4 spells on the Delta. Cat does have Counterspell here. And the question is now the time for Cat to start a fight?
Definitely.
And Don has Counterspell for Counterspell. I would be intrigued on Don not cashing in the spell Snare, because not every card you're going to be able to snare. So sometimes I like to be able to use my interaction when the time presents itself, and Counterspell only gets better with time. And now it's time to free the Fae. So you got the adventure side of this Picklock Prankster for Cat. This is instant speed mill 4, take an instant sorcery or fairy. That milled quad land, Delta, Delta, Watery Grave, Watery Grave. I'm so sorry. This is the card that digs the deepest for Goryo's while milling yourself and being at instant speed. So this is kind of the pet card. I think a lot of the glue that helps fuel this Dimir version of this deck. Going for Bitter Triumph, paying 3 life. Don is going to be able to cash in this Spell Snare.
Considering, is it worth it?
Yes, because this is going to kill the Murktide. So, but Cat here holding up Dubs Blue, really representing having counter magic to fight back once again. So the hard part is just how far does Don want to fight? Fire off that Spell Snare quick into the graveyard there for Cat. Cat holding 2 2-drops in hand with another Picklock Prankster and a Psychic Frog. But the issue being is this Murktide is large and in charge now. But we could, if we're Cat, cast the Picklock Prankster. Just get a 1/3 Flying Vigilance blocker. Use that as a fog if you'd like. But second Frog. Who needs fog when you got Frog? Big rips. Don low on cards, Cat low on cards, but a lot happening here directly on the battlefield. 7/7 Murktide against 2 Frogs.
These frogs are going to start disappearing. Oh, you'd have to jump them. That's unfortunate.
Right. Well, Cat can jump them on Cat's turn and draw 2 cards. One card per frog. And remember, on top of all of the general back and forth value that's being generated here, Cat's on the hunt for Goryo's Vengeance. If that ever happens, Atraxa is into play. And the graveyard only matters for 1 card. Cat can eat a bunch of them with these frogs. As long as you leave the Atraxa around, you can eat as much as you want.
Then I guess it's time to go.
Yeah. Milled over those 4 lands, feed them to the frog.
Get the little pokes in.
Yep. And poking in with the 2-power one. Big draws, Hollowed Fountain. All right, Bryce, why do you think there's a Hollowed Fountain in the deck?
If I had to guess,
Yeah.
To hard cast Atraxa?
That's right, baby.
Okay.
So if there's a Hallowed Fountain, what else must there be?
Shoot. A hedge maze.
Nah, it's just a breeding pool. But you're right? Same thought, right? So I did initially build this deck with only splashing 4 Ephemerates. I finally found copies of Essence Flux to get the blue version, and now the cat just has the one of each shock, just in case you cast Atraxa, because these games go so long. But now Don trying to cash in a subtlety here on a hard cast Picklock Prankster.
I think that's fine.
I think it's fine. The 1/3, its job is to kind of block the Murktide because Cat is at 6. Cat does have the option to eat stuff with the frog to try to block these, but the question is just to what extent do we want to try to fight? Oh yeah. You see the big things? This is a deep tank moment for Cat. Cat has a subtlety of their own. Could subtlety back the subtlety, but that would take the 2 cards out of the hand.
You got 2 frogs. You can draw them back later.
That is very true, right? Cat's got the 2 frogs. Subtlety for the subtlety, which means Don's subtlety will either end up on the top or the bottom. Cats will end up in the yard, but then this Picklock Prankster will be here ready to block the Murktide. Cat will be able to double jump the frogs because this subtlety will be the 6th card or 7th card in yard. So Cat will be able to exile all the non-Atraxa cards to be able to get in there with both of these frogs. And did you see where the subtlety went? Top or bottom?
Bottom.
Bottom? All right, so fresh card here for Don. It's preordained. Digging deep. One top, one bottom. Push, drown, and lock. Jeez.
Bad.
Wait, whoa, no, Cat, no! You can respond to the drown and lock, eat all the cards in your graveyard, and you would not have enough cards to kill it.
Because you'd have 1.
You'd have 1 card. Ah.
Oh, jeez.
I have found so many weird interactions like that. Also, when your opponent tries to surgical extraction you can eat that with your frog to keep all your other copies in your deck. There's a lot of weird things that you can do with eating the cards that you have with your frog to allow you to make sure the cards like that just don't work exactly the way that they thought that they would. Cat quickly shuffling through the sideboard juke plan of there's some Murktides in the sideboard. The same thing, playing this deck, I found a lot of times being a little under duress that your graveyard could be sometimes with people bringing in specific cards like a surgical extraction and the like. I have found that if you have a card like Murktide in your sideboard, you can just get it before they have any of the goodies to fight back. So sideboard here, we've got 2 Harbinger of the Seas, 3 Murktide Regent, 3 Consign to Memory, 2 Surgical Extraction, 2 Force Negation, 2 Path of Peril, and a Toxic Deluge. Bryce, what do you think? What of these cards would you want?
Playing against Dimir Murktide,
Yep.
I think we bring in our own Murktides for sure.
Of course, love of the Murktides.
Surgical isn't feeling great, but
Nope.
I'd try it.
Oh no, you're one of those. You would just try the surgical out.
If you get them one time, like that's it.
Yeah, true.
Forces come in.
Forces, of course, right? You just got to fight over everything.
Is it worth it to bring Harbinger?
So it's interesting, right? So Harbinger is in this deck because you only ever need the single swamp. Pushes, triumphs, and frogs will only ever require 1 swamp from you. The Dimir deck, if you catch them off kilter, but the thing is the Dimir decks themselves typically play these Harbingers, so I imagine they also don't need to worry as much. I imagine bringing in the Forces and the Murktides, and you're just kind of preparing to play a straight-up mirror. I'd probably shave kind of 1 of each of the interactive plan, shave Agorio, shave Unatraxa, shave, one of the Essence Fluxes to get those Murktides in there, then flavor to taste the remaining 2 to get those Forces. That way you can also be a streamlined deck yourself, but possibly have that backdoor plan.
Yeah, that sounds good. I mean, you would know more
Yeah,
than me.
this is
It's
exactly what I
definitely
did.
your deck.
It's exactly what I did in every frog mirror. Was just bring in those 5 cards and trim a little. And then, do we have the straight up Dimir deck that Don is playing?
No, we have another. Just a stock list.
Important part, if you look in this stock list for Dimir Murktide, this player is playing Thought Scour. I believe we saw Don playing Consider. That's kind of like the one back and forth that players do have. I do love Thought Scour because it just puts so many cards in the yard, but Consider gives you that card selection. As you can see here in this sideboard, right, this Dimir deck also has those Harbingers of the Sea, 4 consigned, Stern Scolding, Surgicals, Break the Ice, and then some Deluge packages in both Glistening and Toxic. It's the same deal. This deck in the Dimir deck is more willing to bring in their Surgical Extractions, trying to hit big ol' Atraxa if they are seen. And otherwise, I think that might just be it. If Don is incredibly scared of Psychic Frog, I guess you could bring in your Scoldings and know if they're bad, you can pitch them to your forces or feed them to your own frog. But that's kind of up to the players. But really, I think the only piece of action out of that board could be Surgical Extractions.
Now, in a lot of stock lists, I've been seeing the Break the Ice. What is that for?
Break the Ice? That's because the Tron matchup is so bad.
Mm.
So these Dimir decks are, interestingly enough, not very good against Boros and not very good against Eldrazi, but really good at beating up on everybody else, right? So you can see they have like 4 Break the Ice, 4 Consigned to Memory as just being like, Tron is hard for me.
I need the answers.
Right.
Okay.
So you'll see a lot of blue-black decks and Goryo's decks having those cards just being like, if I have this whole package in my sideboard, I can try to cheese a game 1 with like a big frog and a counterspell, but worst comes to worst, they have so many sideboard cards. And if you ever overload a Break the Ice, I can't imagine it does happen, but if you do, you got to feel like a god. The cat here keeping a 7, Don going down to 6.
Good old smiley face.
You got to love the smiley face. The smiley face is good for the 7. And Don, I saw Elise drew cards like a push and a frog. So Elise drawing some of the foundational spells for what this deck is up to. Keeping that 6. The GG's all around. Here we go. Flood Strand. Pass it back. Don drawing a Subtlety. Dark Slick Shores. Cat on the fetch. What could it possibly be? Turn 1, Magic the Gathering. Nowadays, it's the Surveil lands. Snap Atraxa into the yard. Cast Entomb. Make Don cut it. Make Don cut to Atraxa. Snap Entomb. Come on.
Oh, no.
No, not the chop. Not the chop.
Well, it's not Atraxa.
Not Atraxa, yeah. Cat's a thinking. Another Flood Strand. You see Cat's hand of having cards like Counterspell, just ripped a frog off the top there. Might just do the same thing the Cat did last game, just force Don to have it, jamming that turn 2 frog. Reading Pool. Pass the turn. Cat holding up copy of Counterspell, seen at the front of their hand there. I have not cast Counterspell in like 10 years. The last time I played Counterspell was in Pauper, like 10 years ago, right?
Jeez.
Then I picked up this deck and I was like, shoot, man, this card's good. As a Cat here is trying to free the Fae, right? Kind of a bait, kind of not a bait, so it's hard to know for Don if Don wants to hit it or not. Mills the Atraxa, picks up an Essence Flux.
Seems good. Will they find Goryo's this game, though?
That's a great question, right? That's kind of always the question.
Is that a surgical at the top? I just
For
saw
Cat?
a black card.
Ooh, the Cat bringing Surgicals as well. You said maybe, right? Try it out. Holding up. There is the Goryo's. Now, remember, this is the very important part. Some people think, oh, we should play Persist in this deck. Goryo's is an instant. So what Cat's going to do is make it awkward for Don. Try to find the right moment. Weave the needle. Instant speed that Goryo's in. Maybe Don tries to get a frog in play, something of the likes. Allow Cat to sneak in, get that Atraxa, draw some of them goodies. Or at least I hope so. That's the thought, right? Kind of the difference in the power there of having the instant speed effect and Atraxa versus having a sorcery speed like a Persist and an Archon. And Atraxa pitches to all your blue cards, right? So if Cat right now has 4 forces and 2 subtleties, it really helps that your big fat thing that gets stuck in your hand, you can at least pitch it away. You see down here, another Dark Slick Shores.
Just going to hold up.
Yeah, how long will these players just stare at each other? Cat's looking to push it through. End step, Goryo's Vengeance. Don cashing in a Spell Snare. Quick untap for Cat. Uh-oh.
Backup plan?
Uh-oh.
Do it again?
Cat does have the Goryo's here to go for it again.
But not a third land?
No third land. And Don cashed in the cheap interactive piece. And the question is, does Don have a more expensive interactive piece? such as a. Oh wait, okay. If Cat did bring in surgical, this is a play that I've seen out of NRG teams winning Charlie on Jeskai control of using the surgical as a peak, right? Using it to take a card out of their graveyard and then knowing exactly what's in their hand before you try to go for it. Incredible move.
Never have thought about that.
Incredible move. This considered as Milton Atraxa. No problemo. But then Cat picks up a frog here and has to pass the turn on back to Don.
Really needing to find a third land.
Yep. This deck's playing 21, 19 lands and 2 sink into the stupor. But ain't that just the way? Don also missing a land and passing the turn back. All right, Cat. So
Slam frog and
yeah,
start doing things.
it might be Slam Frog, right, to try to force some piece of interaction that aren't the ones that you already have, right? Kind of sitting back on the Gorios and seeing if the frog resolves, you can at least start trying to push something through this stalled board state of nobody doing anything.
I mean, you got to fight both axes.
Yes, that's kind of the part of what is entertaining to players for both of these decks is there's 2 axes of both trying to apply threat and trying to answer threat. But Don's pushing a frog. You wouldn't push a frog.
I don't know about
Players
that.
just staring daggers at each other. Send on back. Don drawing my least favorite card played in modern decks right now, Archmage's Charm. Bleh.
Ooh.
What an awful card. I cannot stand it. Get this out of your deck, people, please. Please. Oh, Cat did draw land here. It's the Hollowed Fountain. So just continuing to push the big splash. New frog. Tap fountain. Pass turn.
Another push.
Another push. Can't believe you. You'd push 2 frogs? How you'd push a frog? You wouldn't push a frog. All right, Don drawing that 4th land. So starting to slowly gain that mana advantage. Watery Grave. And now what? And then quick pass back. Leaning on Archmage's Charm. That'll save you.
4th land.
Polluty Duty. Very important. This is now enough mana for Cat to Gorios and protect it with Counterspell.
And has a force in hand already?
And has a force in hand already? This is it. These are the moments we dream of, blue-black players. Don't worry. And if you take the action on Don's turn, a thing you can only do with instant speed Gorios is you can hold up your forces and use them as an actual force, right? They put these limiters on the forces out of the MH2 cycle so that you could only use them reactively, not proactively, right? They're like, you can only do them free on your opponent's turn. Well, if your combo is an instant, you can do it free on their turn. So we're going to Goriosing. Cat trying to get this Atrax into play.
All right, counterspell number 1 is coming.
Another Cling to Dust.
Ooh.
Cling to Dust, a nice 1 mana answer to have an interactive piece. Usually maybe a 1 of in these Dimir Murktide lists. Cat being forced here to counterspell, target the Cling. Don, counterspell, target the counterspell. The Atraxa gets eaten. Cat did not have force, but he did not have force.
Oh, no.
Oh, another Gorios.
Okay.
And that's for the Atraxa that got milled over earlier. Sheesh. Oh, but now Don gets to reactively use Don's forces. It's the same thing, right? The opponent was tapped down, tapped low. That was the time to interact, and now Cat got a Picklock Prankster. 1/3. Flying Vigilance in play.
It's only 20 turns.
Hey, 17 turns. What are you talking about?
17 turns. He gained 3 off the thingamabobber.
Oh, game 3 of the thingamabobber. 20 life for Don.
Oh.
What a stocked graveyard. And Cat drew the Path to Peril. Could try to trade your push the frog. And Don low on cards. So, Cat showing some visible frustration and having trouble pushing through that Goryo's Vengeance. But Don's so low, really relying on this frog and this push, putting Don in a rough spot. Say goodbye to the frog. Bro, that card got Vigilance, Cat. Don't worry. Don't even need to tap it. Archmage's Charm. Woo-wee. Draw your 2. Ooh, boy. Oh, yeah. That card cycled. And now pay 2 for a Surgical Extraction. Cat's not feeling it. That's tagging the Atraxa.
Would you hit the? Yeah, I guess you would have to hit a Traxor, right?
Yup.
You
Yup.
wouldn't just take the frogs.
Oh, what an interesting thought, right? Of being like with your counterspell interaction, if you can keep track of everything and then get the frogs out of the deck. I see one Murktide in there. I see two Murktide in there. Three Murktides. So the Murktides are hiding out in there. So Cat still has the juke threats to push through. Already went through, I think, 2 to 3 Gorios, so not that worried anyways about having to draw more of them. This might be a blessing in disguise for Cat, as long as Cat can find and draw a Murktide Regent. Or more frogs. And then if things start going poorly, if Don starts getting their own Murktide, Cat's got this Bitter Triumph. And if Don starts getting their own frogs or Bowmasters, this Path to Peril.
Nope.
So this little fairy that could is going to start going to work. Looks like Don did draw a frog. And there it is. Probably going to meet this Bitter Triumph. Drew a push. Walk up and I push him. Push that frog. Redraw. This. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Loving these picklock prankster beats. Boop. I did win a game with this deck by just putting 2 picklock pranksters in play and basically just pushing them forward for turn after turn after turn after turn. But this is not that game. Don did find a threat in the form of this Bowmaster. He's going to start to push it through. Maybe I should play Bowmaster in this Goryo's deck because it also works well with the Essence Flux.
Oh.
Good thought, me. Don looks like... Oh, so this is my favorite part, too. It looks like Don drew a push. And the question is this picklock prankster really worth your push?
Not when you have a Murktide.
Oh. But remember, Cat has an answer. There's a Bitter Triumph right there in hand. So allow at the cost of a card or 3 life to be able to answer this Murktide.
Then why do you fully load it? I guess just to.
Don's got
force
counter
it?
magic. Yeah, Don's got a force to fight back with. We're going for the Bitter Triumph for Cat. Discarding the Essence Flux, kind of running out of things to flicker. Going for actual factual counterspell. Resolved quite quickly. And another Triumph. Okay, Cat is fighting. Murktide down. Don, 1 card in hand. Little Bowmaster that could. Remember, this Picklock Prankster has Vigilance, so he can easily block if Don tries to push.
Another one.
Dig deep. Oh, yeah. Just keep running Picklocks into each other, or you can grab this Sink into Stupor or Counterspell. Cat's got options. Grabs actual factual Counterspell. So many cards in the yard. I love that the Picklock Pranksters can grab each other. So it really helps when you're digging super deep for Gorios that you can start chaining Picklock Pranksters that dig super deep. Don drew Archmage's Charm.
Seems good in this situation.
Right. It's good when everyone's just trying to throw one single spell at each other over and over. There is a Cling to Dust in the bin. You are correct, chat. Don might have a little interest in trying to escape that and start drawing some cards. I did that when I played a Frog Mirror at the RCQ this past weekend, just like pushing all of your mana into Cling and clearing out your yard to just like draw more cards to try to stay ahead. But Don's kind of had use for their mana, but it's always good to remember.
Did the Murktide eat the Cling? I don't know what spells he used.
I don't believe so. I think it was post, but yeah, you might be right. It might have got eaten up by that Murktide. I want this Picklock Prankster to deal 20 damage. Oh, boy. Eat it. Munch. That's fine. Because it's Don's trying to send 1 damage and then buff up the army. But Counterspell on that Bowmaster allows Cat to get a 2-for-1 out of this Counterspell.
Shutting all of it down.
Yeah, blocking the token, eating the Bowmaster. Boop. I'm sorry. I get such a kick out of the mediocre beats. When I first started playing Magic, I attacked with a lot of Satyr Wayfinders. This is really taking me back. Of just using your self-mill creatures to really get yourself set up.
When I first started, I swung with a bunch of 1/1s. They just happened to be stacked with auras.
Oh, well, that doesn't count. Oh, my goodness. I think Cat's out of fetchables? What a wild time to be alive. Oh, I think they're just looking for the Surveil Land. 2 of them got milled over in the course of doing all of our deep work. Cat just grabbing a watery grave. Yeah, I try to load the deck up with I think like a 10 or 11 fetchables, but mill games are always weird. You never know where your cards are going to be. Cat here strategically moving, holding up exactly Counterspell and then figuring out what the rest of the mana could be used for. It's the Murktide. It's the Murktide. It's the Murktide. Oh, yeah. A lot of spells to eat here. These Gorios that did us a disservice earlier, eat those up. Get them out of here.
Put it back.
Eating all the cards that aren't the namesakes. I've also thought about playing Snapcaster in this deck. I've gone like real deep of trying to figure.
Snapcaster Gorios.
Yeah, because you could snap the Gorios back. It's not nothing, but
it's spicy.
I did have the Jace Friends Prodigy recently. I think I told you about that. Gorios the Jace back, activate, flip the Jace, and then use it to flashback that same Gorios.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. But this big ol' Murktide, Don 2 cards in hand. Does Don have the cards to fight back?
I mean, he hasn't killed the Piglock Prankster
And
yet.
that's a no! This Piglock Prankster went the distance, thanks to their big friend Murktide. But oh my goodness. Cat was really feeling it. A lot of frustration trying to push through those Gorios, but playing level-headed, picking up those Murktides, finding them when they mattered, pushing through, and now going to a game number 3, Dimir Gorios versus Dimir Murktide.
So
Cat did not bring in the extra forces.
Nah.
But still, maybe not.
No?
Not bringing him in. Fighting the good fight.
Better to have more action, I guess.
Yes. I could think about also swapping like the subtleties of the main for those forces. Oh, and sided forces out. Cat, you madness. Loving it. It's working. Doing a last minute shift. Bringing something to side out back in. Quickly moving through, finding something to cut.
What wasn't good?
That card. I think Cat brought in the Toxic Deluge. I think it was the last chance, last moment brought in them deluges.
Is it worth it?
I don't know. I'm excited to find out. Cat also brought in the Path to Perils, a card that I have in the sideboard here for beating up on Boros. Toxic Deluge, you got to pay the life into it, but Path to Peril just destroys everything CMC 2 or less. So clean up all of them cards out of Boros. Cat here brought those in to clean up the Frogs and the Bowmasters. Might have brought in the Deluge just as well, just in case. Going to this game number 3.
At a healthy life total, or if you swing with an Atraxa once, it can clean up Murktides.
Yes. Yeah, if you can get that Atraxa hidden, you definitely will have a little bit of that netted extra life to be able to fight back. That's also an important part. We were talking about, we're not sure where the Cling to Dust was. If the Cling to Dust was available, if it wasn't eaten by Don's Murktide, you can also use that to target a creature to gain some life. So if it was available, Don may have had outs to just kind of tread water for a hot second there too. The world may never know. Let us know in the YouTube comments down below if you're checking out, on the VOD here. Our players getting ready, locked and loaded. Game number 3. Don on the play. Dimir v. Dimir.
Starting off with a
Polluted Duty, Polluted Delta. Cat's first draw step counterspell. I heard that card's pretty good. Undercity Sewers trigger. Top. It's not the Atraxa Snap. That's all you know. It's a very fun thing about Surreal End. You either think for a while, make sure, make actual factual, like proper decisions, and sometimes you just snap an Atraxa in.
How many times have you snapped an Atraxa?
Too many. I've snapped her in a lot. Like a lot. And in Legacy, I love responding to a Surveil trigger and brainstorming, putting a Atraxa on top, snapping her in off the Surveil. Oh, yeah. Folks, I love Atraxa Grand Unifier. I'm so sorry. I hope this game's been enjoyable. A lot of back and forth. These blue-black mirrors can be very intensive, but also very entertaining.
Just takes a minute to get going.
Oh, yeah. They all have to get their Undercity Sewers going.
Yeah, if you don't Surveil like 2 times in the first 3 turns.
Yeah, what are you doing? It's modern, baby. Cat sitting on a hand of 3 picklock pranksters. Not exactly where those want to be, but just a handful of blue cards. Fetching it up. And I believe we saw Cat going through the sideboard. Cat did not bring in the Harbingers, so no need to use this here to get a hold of the swamp. Instead, using this preserving the life total, and Cat goes and grabs the island of the basic variety.
Looks deciding to pass.
Yeah, this might be one of those matches of who is the first one to blink. Cat is going to be able to use Don's end steps to cast these Free the Phase that if Don interacts with, Don will be tapped out. And if Don doesn't interact with, Cat gets card selection. So we'll have to see what that back and forth is going to feel like for the two of them. Don here, Undercity Sewers, achievement unlocked, getting the second surveil in. So meeting all requirements of playing a game of Modern Magic. Yeah, we can see Singing a Stupor hitting the bin. Don's got frogs and the likes. The question is who's going to blink first? Don might be able to get a third land into play and hold up something like a Spell Pierce to try to push this through.
So third land frog? Or wait until turn 4.
Right? A lot of the good interaction, the really good, easy to tag stuff is at 2. But we can't wait forever. Don's putting the hand down on the table. And this is what I said. Cat's going to try to push. I keep saying push, I'm sorry. To try to force Don to either interact or allow Cat to get card selection. Cat's going to use this Free the Fae to pick up a Consider. Fill the yard, get some selection. Don not willing to use counter magic or interaction on that Free the Fae.
So it's going to be another turn of just chilling. Probably fire off this Consider.
Well, Cat has 2 more Free the Faes. So no rush here for Cat. Has a couple different cards to try to get through on Don. The question will be is what Don's going to do at this time, this interaction, these cards. And Don might be doing exactly what you said of getting to 4 mana to be able to have Frog and Counterspell to try to fight back against Cat just having Counterspell. They're chatting, they're good friends, having a good time. And here's a Bowmasters. Cat may have interest in firing off the Consider in response. Kind of the only card that punishes you to this Bowmaster. Yep. Just kidding.
Considering.
Yeah, considering the Consider. That's right. And the Consider's face up, right? So Cat's not giving away really any free information on debating on this. The real information is just if Cat does or does not want to cast it. Mills over Fledge trying to real quick, picks up Goryo's Vengeance. And this Bowmaster still in the stack. This is Cat's end step. So this is a thing, right? Of both these players doing things in the end step are kind of trying to force interaction out of the other person, just seeing who's going to blink even a little.
So if this picklock does anything this turn, it has to hit an Atraxa this turn.
It does. It really wants to mill over an Atraxa.
Could be really good.
Cat on end step. We'll have to see if Cat has interest in using the mana. A lot of those Atraxas look like they're floating on the bottom, so a good shuffle here. Going back through, picking out what's going to work just right. It's Watery Grave down at 13. Well, I hope you've got nothing hidden behind those locks because it's time for a pick, lock, prankster, Adventure Side, Free the Fae.
Let's look at that top 4.
Low peak. Not it, not it, not it, not it. Pick up Spell Snare or Goryo. Spell Snare is really good for trying to fight these counter wars. But also sending a signal to Don that you do not have interest in the Goryo's Vengeance. But Don can see your yard doesn't have any fat, so that at least makes some sense.
Needs to develop something, though. Can't keep getting poked for 2 every turn.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Picklock Prankster go the distance with the help of a Murktide. But very important. And we see Cat did pick up a Murktide. So if you want to talk about getting down a threat, The question will be is Don full mana available? Knows Cat has the spell snare, but will Cat have enough to try to push through this Murktide? Big tank in here. Slamming the dragon. I always forget this card is a dragon.
It's a wait. Yeah,
It's a dragon.
of course it's a dragon.
And Obsidian Charmaw is a dragon. But like something about them just don't feel dragony to me that I always forget.
Is it the giant wings and the scales?
Well, I noticed that, but the effect that the cards do don't remind me of dragon, right?
That's fair.
But, Murktide is a big old blue dragon. This is what a blue dragon would do. Oh my gosh, is the Archmage's Charm. Archmage's Charm plays around. Okay, this is what I'm talking about too. So Cat here has to fetch to get this interaction. If Don had interaction that cost 1 mana that Don wanted to use on this Murktide, this would have been the moment, but not quite. Cat's going to be able to go through, get this fetch, get this shock, get this Watery Grave.
Not the Water Grave.
And get not the Watery Grave, get the Hollow Fountain. And now going to be able to push through this Murktide, hopefully by using this counterspell. The question is, does Don have a force or piece of 1 mana interaction? Consider on the hunt for a piece of free interaction. That's a frog. Now what Don's looking for. That's a surgical extraction. Also now what Don's looking for, because this is what I'm talking about. I love bringing these Murktides because this does not care about surgical. This card just cares about eating up that graveyard and allows to push through this big threat. 6/6. Difficult for Murktide to deal with outside of using a card like Drown in the Loch, Shoot the Sheriff, or Go for the Throat. Don Frog. And now all these cards look so small compared to Cat's 6/6 Murktide. And Cat drew a Fatal Push to be able to fight against these little guys. Whoo-wee.
Swing.
Don's at 16, so that's 3 hits from this Murktide. But Cat, wants to start by dealing with this frog so that Don can't convert these cards in hand into damage. And Cat's still sitting on this spell snare that Don knows about, and so many of the cards in these decks are 2 mana.
Would you have swung first just to see if they'd block?
That's a great question, huh? Oh, to see if Don would have jumped the frog to try to use it as a blocker?
Yeah.
Kind of, but also I think getting through this 6 damage is so important too. It's kind of that idea of playing as few turns of Magic as possible. Cat now has the clock in play, but knows this clock is going to take 3 turns, and there's not a lot of turns left here. That might as well make this that first turn. Don go for the surgical extraction right now.
Hitting
counterspell proper.
Okay, that seems good.
This is what I was talking about, right? Using that as a way to peek at the hands, figure out what piece of interaction you're working against, and clearing counterspell out of Cat's deck.
But Cat has every other piece of interaction.
Right. Cling to Dust, Goryo's, Bitter Triumph, Free the Fae, and Spell Snare, all in hand. There's those counterspells. So pretty. Beautiful counterspell.
I don't know. I'm pretty fond of the Chicago one.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't know who that guy is, but he's countering that spell for sure. And it looks like Don does have counterspell in hand, but knows about this Spell Snare. And if Don tries to go for it, this frog's going to die anyways. Okay. Murktide, boom. And Don had to use that surgical. And now by paying out this Picklock Prankster, Cat should have lethal damage. 6/6 Murktide and a 1 damage on this Picklock Prankster, forcing Don to have to use Fatal Push on a Picklock Prankster. Who doesn't love to see it? And Don with land, counterspell, and 1 more card in hand.
Is that 1 card good enough?
It needs to answer this Murktide. That's the problem.
What about if it's its own Murktide?
Right. Because Don needs to not only answer this Murktide, get threats in play, but do so through this Spell Snare. Oh, the Murktide battles. Don, I think, showing off the hand to an onlooker, never a good sign. Oh, wow.
Oh, another Bowmaster.
Oh, Bowmans. And very importantly, thanks on the great shout out from chat as Cat takes this game down when the counterspell left the yard, that would have triggered the Murktide. So this thing would have been a 7/7 anyways. But we were A-okay. This game got taken down. A great use of Surgical to try to clear out those counterspells, figure out what the world looks like, but just a little bit too much out of Cat. Here, Demir Goryo is going to 2-0, taking down 2-1. Real quick, folks, give you a quick chat about the Nerd Rage Gaming Discord. If you're not in here, come on and get into this. There's both one for the Nerd Rage Gaming home store as well as one for the NRG Championship Series. Come on in there, talk to folks about all the formats. Now is a great time with spoilers going up. A lot of cards to talk about, figuring out just which cards that you want to wish list and buy at nerdragegaming.com. There's nothing better than chatting with fellow Magic players, figuring out what the new spices, what the new goods are, picking them up and playing them at your local events. Our players will hopefully be doing just the same next week. Chats in there all the time, even figuring out what cards are good, what cards to borrow, what cards to play, and who to chat with here at the Nerd Rage Gaming home store. If you want to give us a chat, you are welcome to do so. We're going to head on out of here. We're going to figure out just how long it's going to take us to get to round number 3. We will be back ASAP. Please don't go anywhere. See you soon. Bye. everybody, and welcome back to round number 3 of the Nerd Rage Gaming Home Store Modern Week. Week 3, Season 3, Round 3. Threes all around here for our 2-0 players. I'm Dom Stryker, joined by Bryce Jones. We're bringing in Season 1 champ, George Jabor, facing off against Control Buddy. He even playing Kahira right now in the Companion Zone. Brian Tepper. These fine folks want me to let you know that they say that they are fast control players, so we're here to see the full match of George Jabor 4-color control versus Brian Tepper 4-color energy.
What's that thing with the jumbo shrimp? What's that called?
The thing with the jumbo shrimp?
What is that?
You mean Bubba Gums?
Nah.
What are you
know
talking
what they
about?
call it? It's the term for it because the shrimp isn't jumbo.
Oh, you're talking about oxymoron.
Oxymoron.
A fast control player?
Control player.
I understand. What's that thing, jumbo shrimp? I'm with you. I understand now. As the players were going fast, but Brian using a full minute here to find a triumph. George, a big fan of playing the 1-mana Tameo in his control decks, but has taken 2 turns here and not played any of those spells yet, not even weaving in that 1-drop. Brian Tepper playing that land. If you thought last round of 2 blue-black players was going to be a lot of land to go, well, welcome to 2 control players. It's going to be a lot of land to go. And the fireworks will usually kick in when the first player decides to no longer say go.
Honestly, I enjoy the match playing it.
Oh, playing it.
Playing
yes.
it.
It's so cool because you're like starting to like line up what the cards in your hand are going to be trying to do, when you're going to use them, what cards can you kind of weave in seamlessly. So that's something like a Tameo or a Preordain. Like it's not worth fighting over, but it's kind of important. And just kind of judging what your opponent is or isn't going to do about things. Thundering Falls, the first Surveil. We've done all this fetching, but this is the very first Surveil. I'm sure there'll be many, many more to be found, possibly off this Flood Strand here for George. Breeding Pool. These mana bases are all just all over the place.
It's like the best part about Magic, though.
As specifically Modern Magic is defined by just how greedy and all over the place these mana bases are. George here picking up this Thundering Falls, starting to get his Surveil on. You can see Brian setting up this mana base here to, I believe, allow himself to play cards like Leyline Binding. George, however, namesake card, Narset, Parter of Veils here, just the little bird crane version.
Didn't even think about fighting over it.
Of course. Tepper knows you can't let George have one of those. Are you kidding me? And now Brian firing back with Teferi.
Your own counterspell?
Right. Importantly, George did not fight back. Because if George did, Brian would have been clear for takeoff here. But Brian has a counterspell to fight back if George tries to fight. So we've reached the first blink. It was that Narset. Got George to tap low. And now is allowing Brian to try to resolve this Teferi. And the Teferi resolves and takes down.
Ooh, that is not what you want to see in a control mirror.
Right, Wrath of the Skies in this very non-permanent based matchup. Galvanic Discharge is really an important pickup for these control decks because it can go after walkers as well. Brian giving a little ha-ha about just how many points of energy George wants to pay. George casting Entomb, getting that Flage in the bin off this Thundering Falls. And already 3 cards to feed to it. The One Ring from Brian. Main deck consign from George. Replicated 3 times.
Not even giving it a chance to
I mean,
resolve.
it's smart, though, right? That means your opponent would need 3 interactive pieces to try to push through, and you need to guarantee that ring doesn't resolve. It's funny, we're laughing, but also probably just correct to shove all your mana into making copies.
What's the follow-up? Oh, just pass.
Well, we're back to land go. Both players tried to push some things through. Neither player really bit, and now we're back to putting Kahira in hand for Brian Tepper.
It's just going to be a subtlety? Nope.
Nope. Nothing. And it's a Teferi of George's own. This is the Tefeathery. What do you think, Brian? Because Teferi, one of the hardest cards for Control to play against, an incredible card for Control to play. Brian forced there to use that counterspell and Tefeathery down. Brian, the slot of mana.
Hard cast.
Yeah, hard cast Lorien quickly resolved there out of George. So many cards for Brian. Brian, do you have to go to cleanup? Oh, it's so many cards.
Pitching 2?
Hmm. Yep, there's a discard.
Oh,
Nope. Oh,
land?
playing out the
Okay.
steam vents and then having oh, that's 8. I wonder if we're gonna ditch the Wrath of the Skies if you're Brian.
Yeah.
Not a permanent to be seen outside of these lands. Sacred Foundry. Yeah, so George now currently on 7 mana. Brian also with 7. No need to shock here out of George. And tune the narrative out of Brian. A card that George refers to as Blue Dark Ritual because it specifically nets you 2 mana when casting Wrath of the Skies, right? It basically just gives you the 2 that you need for that later. And here is Subtlety on Brian's Narset. I haven't seen Narset in a long time, and suddenly both these players have it.
Putting it right back on top.
Yep, that's next turn's fight. But George will be able to kind of fight down it with this Subtlety, but Brian using a Galvanic Discharge, so say goodbye to the Subtlety. Very importantly, right, we know that Tepper has Kahira, which means Brian does not have access to Flage. George here does not have Kahira specifically to have this Flage and Tamiyo's, and now we're going to see just how worth it as Flage resolves.
I mean, if I had to choose between the two,
Between Flage and Kahira? Yeah.
I think there's one choice.
Yeah, not that far off. Brian draws that Narset that Brian put on top. Brian could also Wrath the Skies for 3 just to clean up this Flage. Not the worst. You know, a 5 mana 1-for-1. You've done that with Solitudes and the like before.
He has a Solitude, though.
George would go up to 28 if we Solitude this Flage. Oop. It's Narset. Pre-release stamped Narset, though. Man, of taste is Brian Tepper. Immediately resolved with land, elemental. Say goodbye. George saying some sweet words to Narset. She would never betray him. Did not even give a card to Brian Tepper. It's very funny. And now Brian trying to figure out what to do with the rest of the mana. Brian does not have a Sneaky Days Undoing currently in hand already. The turn's going back to George. Meticulous Archive. Very importantly, we know that Tepper has gone through 1 Surveillance. This is the second one for George now. Or third, sorry. Both Thundering Falls in play in this archive. Beautiful Dominic Meyer Prismatic Ending hitting the bin for George. And here's a Solitude pitching. Something for Brian. Brian Tepper, what are you throwing in the bin? It's between this Kahira and the Wrath of Skies, and it is the Kahira. So this is the old school trick of picking it up for free to allow you to have that white card for Solitude. And here's Teferi, meaning a hard cast Force Negation and quickly going into exile as George goes for this Flage. And the Flage immediately takes down the Narset. Quick play from these players and back to Brian Tepper.
Looked away for just a second.
Yeah. And the control players decided that was the moment, right? Brian, tons of mana passing it back. Looks like a Wrath the Skies and an interactive spell. Picked up Omnath, Locus of Creation. George hasn't had to deal with this card in a while. Looks like responding to the draw trigger with a Galvanic Discharge. Spending a full 4. Like I've always said, they put that draw trigger to make Omnath worse. It gives you that moment to interact, and George took advantage of it. All right. George starting with 2 mana here for a Wrath of the Skies. X equals 0, just to put a card in the yard to now escape this Flage. It was a little confusing there for a moment, but now we see exactly what George was doing, which is getting that extra card. 32-10, these Flage triggers are going out of control.
So is that how you win the control mirror? Just keep casting Flage?
Yes.
Don't even need a swing,
just keep Flaging on them.
Lightning Helix like every other turn?
Yeah,
Doesn't seem
because
bad.
George gets to deal 9 damage next turn if Brian doesn't do something to stop him. Brian using Wrath of the Skies. X equals 2, using some of that remaining to deal with this Flage. And now purposely leaving ourselves just enough mana to cast this ring with Counterspell backup. I believe Brian didn't even have the Counterspell, but took every action to appear as if he does.
I mean, you gotta fake it.
That's the classic control move. You gotta fake it. And now I think this ring drew another ring. It sure did. Oh, Brian, I hate these basics so.
The Lord of the Rings?
Yeah.
How could you hate the Lord of
Because
the
I
Rings?
can't tell which one's which.
What do you mean? That's definitely that's not the Shire. Those are plains and islands.
Yeah, sure. Well, one of those is the plains, so really gotcha. Yes, these players are playing perfect speed for control players. They will take the moments to think, understandable, but playing quickly as they can. But the issue here might just be that Brian Tepper's trying to run away with it, casting these copies of the One Ring, digging really deep, netting lots of cards. George had a Flage, but now nothing to feed to it. George gone through 3 surveils. Is there another one? Is there another one?
Not looking like it.
The classic Magic player, when you like go all the way through the deck when searching, take a pause and go back to the beginning and search again. That's the what I'm looking for is not here. And George, he registered this deck as 4-color control. Do you know if there is something off of 4th color in here somewhere? As that
No,
Thology takes it down. Do we have a deck list to look at?
we do.
Oh, well, let's find out. Brian Tepper here taking it down in game number 1, taking our first peek here at George DeBoer's Jeskai control deck. Sideboard 4 Obsidian Charma. We were just talking about why do players have all these cards. It's because the Tron and Eldrazi matchups are so bad for these decks that they'll take 4 Charmas, 3 Consigned to Memory, 2 Surgical Extraction, a Celestial Purge, a Pyroclasm, Days Undoing, 2 Mystical Dispute, and a Supreme Verdict. So, if you're George, you're going to pick up this Days Undoing, these Mystical Disputes, and maybe that's it. Maybe some of those Consigned to Memories to fight over the rings. Maybe Charmas, from what I was saying before, to Brian's got much more of a greedier mana base, so maybe bring in some of these as aggressive 4/4 threats to deal with some parts of the mana base. But I'm not the expert. George has been at this for a long time. Might be trimming on things like the prismatic ending and possible other pieces that maybe he's not fully believed in to bring in these Days Undoings, these disputes, and maybe some consigns and maybe some Charmas. We'll just have to see. And then Brian Tepper's big old pile of 4-color cards that he likes. Beautiful 76 here in the sideboard. 2 Fable of the Mirror Breaker. The hero that we saw as companion. Subtlety, Ashiok Consigned to Memory. Spell Snare, 2 Stern Scolding, 2 Purges, 2 Force of Negation, 2 Engineered Explosives. Let me get these Force Negations. Let me get a Subtlety, maybe even bringing in these Fables. And then Ashiok is the only card that Brian has to fight back against opposing graveyards. So I imagine both these players are probably trimming a lot of copies of the Wrath of the Skies and going into these big pieces of interaction that they do have in the boards.
Now, would you side out the Wrath of the Skies? Because it does answer Planeswalkers if they're able
Yeah.
to stick.
It sure does. So our other answers to walkers would be Galvanic Discharges and Leyline Bindings if you're Brian Tepper. So maybe you don't shave all of them, but maybe at least like 1 or 2 of these overall 3. I just really, really want to be able to fight back against things, which makes me want cards like at least Force and Ashiok. And maybe Brian's going for only a couple of changes and has room to shave maybe something else somewhere else. But both of these players, funnily enough, are both playing 1 main deck copy of Consigned to Memory. I don't know what's going on out there. George can at least use his to scam his Flage. Brian can use his to scam some of his elementals as well. But this card, Consigned to Memory, which many thought was just a tool for beating down on Eldrazi, becoming these main deck tools for these control decks and piles more on the sideboard.
When I first read the card, I was like, cool, it deals with Tron and stuff.
Right.
Everyone's using it everywhere.
Yeah. Also deals with your Flayed trigger, deals with your opponent's One Ring, just countering it straight up, or countering the trigger on your own One Ring. There's so many times they can come up in ways that you didn't expect. At the card stock, probably just going to keep going up and up and up. I did some nasty things again with it against an Amulet Titan opponent, countering their Amulet triggers.
Whoa, whoa, whoa! You shouldn't be doing that to people.
You got to do what you got to do sometimes. I don't determine who I play against. That part's up to them. I do determine when I consign to memory their primetime ETB triggers, though.
Yeah, I've lost many of games today.
Oh no.
Titan.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, pack for Titan, counter the ETB. You're like, oh no. I've gone through so much to get to this point. Brian Tepper looks on a very land. Oh no, land full. Just some arts I didn't quite spot there. Looks like 3 lands. George with a quick mulligan. Brian Tepper, your winner for game number 1. So George will be on the play. Mulliganing down to 5. And Brian being on the draw will be at 8 cards. It'll be George's 5 against Tepper's 8.
Oh no, they're doing the thing.
Yep, this is the new mulligan meta for those who don't know. This is that count to 5, right? George is clearly indicating that he's counting down to 5.
Oh, gotta switch them out.
Yep,
Colors
yep.
have to match.
Great. Really appreciate it. Love uniformity out of the visuals out there with the players. They're just kind of having a good time. George is mulliganing down to 5, so at least making the best out of it, having a little bit of a bit. Looks like we got to keep. 2 to the bottom. This keep for George. Island go. Not fetch, not surveil, not tapped shock. Island go. Lorien revealed search. On the hunt for meticulous archive. George to once again in the second turn. Hold up that blue mana and start surveilling, possibly to find even more lands. Yeah. I think it was an island Lorien keep, and then George kept quickly off this surveil. I imagine it was good cards, but just not any lands. George trying to fix that land problem.
Now, is it worth it as a control player to even consider? Oh no.
He's consigned the surveil trigger. George.
That's rude.
George. Hey, if there's any folks in chat, sound off about how savage of a move it is to consign your opponent's surveil trigger. George, thank you. Really glad you did it.
There's a first time for everything.
First time for everything. Just firing up.
Days?
Oh, okay, we got this loose days.
I don't know if he's giving up
Yeah,
or is he just...
yeah. I don't even know if Brian was supposed to counter that either. But he did. He 2-for-1 himself using that force there. And then Brian did bring in these fables.
Oh no.
I did think these were a card Brian was going to bring in. And these fables are going to work quite powerfully. That's a beautiful picture of Brian and their sweet little baby. So you must appreciate it. It's wonderful and helpful. And thank you, Brian, for having it. Chapter number 2. How many cards do you want to drop? How many cards do you want to draw? Drop that solitude.
You won't need it.
Trust me, you won't need that one. In comes Brian and the baby. 2 damage, make a treasure.
Slam to fairy, close game?
Come on, they don't have a treasure token? Brian, I'm going to figure what that die is. George here quickly seems to be fixing these mana woes. We had Steam Vents last turn and Thundering Falls this time. Untapping, maybe even finding land 5.
Oh.
Did, and slamming a Flage.
Answer the goblin?
Yeah, if it answers, it is an answer for that goblin. Well, not a real card, but hanging out in the graveyard just the same. Tune the narrative. Brian didn't tune in response. And look, there's a counterspell. Maybe we should have tuned. Oh boy, some of these games are won by inches, and that might have been the inch there for Brian.
Flip Fable.
Yes, more importantly, right? George is able to deal with the first part of the Fable. Brian didn't get that much value off the second, but now it's the third part. So much built into one card package.
Just a counterspell.
Last card counterspell for answering this Narset for George.
But now he's in top deck mode, so that's
Well,
Fairy's good to go.
he's got mana for Flage, though. And this will be exactly the 5th card in Yard with this counterspell. Counterspell on the counterspell. Narset resolves. But Flage will be able to come back on George's turn and answer it. But discharge out of Brian might be the answer for the Flage.
Okay, he's
Ooh.
had.
Oh, George didn't have a second white source. It was Dolomnoth Island, Meticulous Archive, 2 blue-red sources. We did not actually have the man.
Lands and not 2 white.
Yeah, did not actually have the man to cast the Flage. And folks, this is Brian Tepper taking down 2-0 here in this control mirror due to an unfortunate mulligan for George. But what that means is we've got folks in the backup who didn't think we were even going to make it to them. But surprise, surprise, let's see these 2 artifact masterclass pilots squaring off. We got Sammy G on blue-white hammer on the left side here, and Alex playing Affinity on the right. If you play in the Chicagoland area and you've played against Alex, I have never, ever seen him play anything but these Affinity-style decks, and he gets very, 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 very good at them. But if you play here at the Energy Home Store, you know the same thing for Sam on hammer. And taking a peek at this board, it's 29-7 in favor of Sam with 2 hammers. It looks like no, a hammer and I believe a Shadow Spear currently on this Pure Steel Paladin might be the card that's make or breaking this match.
Jumping into this game, this board is all mucked up.
Right? A lot has happened. A lot has happened. Alex here making a construct. And yeah, that Ornithopter, not the biggest right now. Both players thinking. Sam's doing the tippy tap, counting on the table. You're at 29. What are you worried about?
Alex chilling. He's like,
oh yeah, Alex is always chilling. He knows what his deck does inside and out, all day, every day. Yeah. I couldn't even tell you what turn this is, what moment this is. We're thinking. We are thinking. All right, boys, pick it up. Oh, I know that Alex took the game, actually made that construct.
Was it in response to the swing? I'm not even sure what was going on.
This is a great question, King. I'm not sure. Oh, I thought Alex had 1 card in hand. He just fanned out that full grip. I thought it was just 1. All right, he's entered action mode. Alex just got activated. Okay.
Had to sit up straight for this one.
Yeah. He knows he's live now. Coming at you live from Buffalo Grove, Illinois, is Nerd Rage Gaming. Round 3, Week 3, Season 3, here for the local leagues. Keeps fiddling with that Ornithopter. I don't know what you think he's doing.
Are they going in front of the bus or?
Oh yeah,
is it a swing?
Yeah, this is the swing. Okay, Alex is figuring out the bus. Sam doing the finger taps on the table, probably counting how big this construct is. Yeah, this is the trade. That construct is huge. Taking on the construct and the thought monitor, but Sam going to 42. And then post combat re-equip to another Pure Steel Paladin. Play out a second Esper Sentinel, holding up Hallowed Fountain and a fetch land here for Sam and passing it back to Alex. Wow, what an incredible moment. Alex was leaned back in the zone because we were counting, just figuring out how to survive this massive swing.
Just to have to deal with it again next turn.
And then again, as there are still these 2 Pure Steel Paladins in play. Which actually makes me wonder if Sam should be loading up the equipments on the non-Paladin so that we're not trading off our Paladins.
I mean, I think at least the hammer should have went to the Esper Sentinel just to draw a card.
Oh, I love that. Where you're like, you want to pay 11? They're like, I can't. I'm like, I know. I just wanted to say. Oh, yeah. But Sam presenting this as a large and in-charge blocker, right? But the question is do you want that large in charge blocker to be such an important card like the Pure Steel Paladin? Alex, we are, I believe, currently thinking on the Urza Saga Chapter 3 trigger. You want to talk about something that's also fun to consign to memory? Urza Saga triggers.
Oh my goodness. It
Mm-hmm.
hits everything.
Yup. You just got anytime you say out loud to your opponent the word trigger, you could consign to memory that. Alex here looks like using the mana, possibly getting a construct before going on that big search.
Does seem quite worth it to do it here. I don't know what's in his hand currently,
But these constructs are what is allowing him to trade off with how big that Pure Steel Paladin was the last turn. So if I'm Alex, I've got interest in making these constructs, just being able to fight back.
I mean, there are 10/10 constructs if you can find just anything to throw on the board.
Oh, well, this Saga should be able to find something, right?
And it's going to be. Looks like
Like
a
a-
Shadow Spear.
Or like I was thinking like an Aether Spellbomb, something to interact. Bouncing the big attackers or what it could be. Alex. Ooh, he's thinking. Yeah, every permanent inside is an artifact. So 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10 for the power of this construct, going up to 11 based on what we're going to find here.
Oh, the treasure land thing is an artifact.
It sure is an artifact land. Yeah, the treasure vault. So alongside the blue-black bridge here in the Darksteel Citadel. The only artifact Alex has not cast, the non-artifacts this game, were the Thoughtcast and the Urza Saga. Chatter making a great suggestion of if Alex has a needle, trying to needle Hammer so that Sam can't move them around anymore, can't activate them.
It's a good call. Looks like the right call.
This is a needle. What is it naming? I think it looked like Alex mouthed the word Stoneforge.
Is he scared of Cauldron?
Oh, by that you mean Cryptic Code, right?
Oh my goodness, Cryptic.
Because that's the one
no.
That's the one all the boys and girls need to be scared of out there. That's the one that gives this card unblockable. I'm not quite sure. Might go out there and give them something real quick so that they can write down what this needle's on. Want to make sure to give you all the best thing possible. Keep track of all this. Know the information. Oh, yeah, perfect. Thank you. We're going to have someone go out there real quick just so that we can get an indicator for all of you, all of us, and everybody out there so that we can know exactly what it is, this intense game. Sammy G here, 42. Alex at 7. That way we can keep track of everything. Really appreciate these players taking the time, taking a moment, writing it down in this Post-it.
And it will be Hammer.
All right. Hey, perfect. So, Alex here subliminally taking the suggestion from our chatters, naming Hammer so that Sam will no longer be able to move it around. Now,
Cranial plating. That's some.
oh, hey, if I could turn back time, right? Do you want to pay for these Esper Sentinels? Draw 1, draw 2, Spell Pierce. Boom. Alex, the big breathe in there as this cranial plating might be getting answered by this Spell Pierce, and it is. Is Patrick a cast trigger?
Oh.
Patrick Automaton. What a card, too. I've lost to this card. When you have local affinity players, they are usually like all in affinity players. And it is, in fact, cast, so even though that cranial plating got countered, that counter was put in the Patrick Automaton. This Pure Steel Paladin is still large and in charge, but Alex has this construct, has a little bit of extra damage to go around with some of the other creatures, and try to survive. Beautiful game, wonderful time. If you're enjoying it, please, on whatever platforms you're on, hit all the notification things, get some subscribing, join the channels, whatever it could be. We appreciate any and all support. Thank you all so much for being here. Sammy G finding another Ink Moth Nexus. Let's talk about a card that might end this game if we're not careful, and that's Sigarda's Aid. I was wondering what card we'd have if you are on Sam to try to fight through. The Pith Needle on Hammer and Sigarda's Aid might be exactly the card to try to fight through.
Is it though? He'll just block.
Right, but he has to block with enough.
Yeah.
And it is, in
Another
fact,
hammer.
another hammer. It's going on the Paladin. I don't know if Sam's done the math. I sure haven't. 2 cards drawn.
Something up.
Oh,
his sleeve.
Springleaf Drum. Consigned to memory. On the equip trigger.
It hits everything.
Right. Did not counter the actual factual hammer.
He will just be able to move it
Oh.
though.
I think Alex was meaning to counter the hammer, but Sam's drawn the cards, which is the ETB Paladin trigger. But I think Sam is pointing out that Alex could hit the equip trigger as well.
So
And now drawing the 2 for the Esper Sentinels. This is the first card
Second
Alex has
hammer.
cast. Wow, yeah, Sam just had hammer on hammer on hammer on hammer. Drawing even 2 more here. So this card is 2, 3, 23 power.
to 10, 14.
Yeah, they're doing the count.
Don't think it's enough. I think he's.
Yeah, I think Sam might have done the math if Alex blocked with everything, and Alex didn't. 4, 5, 6, and the construct in the way. Only needing to deal 7 damage on that 23. That means Alex needs to block with at least 17 in blocking toughness.
How big is a Frogmite? A 2/2?
2-2 on the Frogmite. 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Wow, is it enough in blocking power?
Is it down to 1?
Alex
Yeah.
survives that 1. Oh my goodness. The math just not quite math in there. But this Paladin is still huge. And Sam goes up to 64 to Alex's 1 point of life. And now Prismatic ending on the
Oh,
Pithing
no.
Needle. And now these hammers are free to move around. Put him on the Sentinels. Put him on the Sentinels. Come on, put him on the Sentinels.
Do the play.
Sam has so many cards in hand, too.
No, just
I felt this way when I played Nadu Hammer. You had so many cards in hand. Sam's doing this old school. Just using these Esper Sentinels and these Pure Steel Paladins to draw all these cards. Pitches the Sigarda's Aid in Esper Sentinel and throws it on back. Now we got this poster just identifying the matchup. For those of you who aren't sure, is Hammer. And now Alex has this Urza Saga to try to make another construct to throw under the bus once again, but there's not enough life total to work with as a Fomori Vault comes into play.
man, the breaking news card.
No, that's not even breaking news. Just the
It's a
big score.
big score card.
Score. And Alex passing the turn back. So either has something or is at least pretend have something good. And how about playing Forge anew as well? Giving Alex a quick read of that one.
Is there anything in the grave right now?
No, but it does allow 1 0 mana instant speed equip. So that allows Sam to push through here. Winning this game here, we're not sure yet of previous records, so don't go anywhere just yet.
They look to be reset.
Rich, can you confirm their match score? Much appreciated. Thank you. We're going to check real quick with these players. Yeah. Perfect. Thank you all so much. We're confirmed they are going into game number 3. So that means Alex took down game number 1. We saw Sam there win game number 2. Now these players going to game number 3. Lots of information between the two of them about what the other person's doing. I imagine we saw a lot of their decks there. And shout out to the chatter catching the Pithing Needle on Hammer. That was a great play there by Alex, but if you draw all the hammers, it still make things really difficult for the opponent. We're going to try to get deck lists up if we have a moment for you, but in the meantime, watch these players shuffle. Yeah, Alex is a bridge shuffler just like that. Years on years on years. He's not selling these cards, keeps on using them. And Sam ready to rock and roll. Alex will be on the play here in this artifact-based mirror of this deck here, Sam's Hammer deck. Things like Dranth Magistrate, Sanctifier, Envex, Sun Cleanser, Blacksmith Skill, Consign to Memory, Prismatic Ending, Celestial Purge, and Pithing Needle. We saw the Prismatic Endings in play, and the Consign to Memories, if not here, where, right? The big battle of the Artifact deck versus Artifact deck. And if Sam saw interaction of some kind, maybe brought in these Blacksmith skills, but I'm sure the 4 Surges in the main deck might already have been just enough.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Alex is just trying to go face as fast as
Oh,
possible.
yes. And players here drawing up these opening 7s. I'm seeing things like, I think Alex may not have drawn a single land there. Quick mulligan back. Alex going to 6. I'm seeing out of Sam, looks like maybe like a land heavy hand, but the spells on the end must be good ones. I see a Consign to Memory. Hey, folks, we've been seeing that card a lot today. If you do not have your Consign to Memories, the best time to buy them was yesterday. The second best time is to try to do it today. Because it's good. We've seen it every match today, right?
Yeah, every match.
Yeah. So, big shout outs to Consign to Memory. You may have noticed Sam is a signed card aficionado here. He's got a lot of this Hammer deck signed. We were just figuring out how to figure out when to get cards signed by the artist who did Consign to Memory. We're trying to figure it out. Keep the beautification running because I don't think that card's being replaced anytime soon. It's just incredible.
I don't know. There has to be a card better than Consign.
Right, but I don't want to know. I don't want to know. I don't want to find it. I don't want to see it. I don't want to play against it. All right. Alex going down to 6. Much appreciated little indicator there on screen for the folks at home and for us. How's this 6? And the thing is, with both Hammer and Affinity, they are critical mass decks, right? They are trying to put together as many pieces as they can to do like one big explosion. So every card that they mulligan away makes it just that much harder to reach that critical mass. Alex, you're keeping the 6-card hand.
And Ornithopter?
He's so big. Sam's first draw step here is a Colossus Hammer. Windswept Heath and a pass. Didn't even play out the Sigarda's Aid or anything else. Possibly holding points of interaction like that Consign. We could have consigned to memory the Urza Saga so that it never would tap for mana. Very fun thing to do.
Think you wait until 2 to get that good value out
Get
of
the
it?
construct making mode. Because Sam will hopefully be able to get a second land down here, use 1 to play the aid, and then 1 to continue to hold up the consign to memory. I can at least see a plains in hand if that's the plan. And now drew a Spell Pierce as well. Saga.
Oh. Gonna go find yours?
Alex is doing it. Alex is doing it. So very importantly, the timing on this. You can either do the it gaining chapter 1 or the trigger for it to gain the ability of chapter 1. Based on the players are indicating here, it looks like Alex declined for Sam to even get chapter 1.
So he'll get no, wait.
Yep, Sam will get chapter 1 on this next turn.
Okay.
So what Alex did was denied mana altogether, but also super delayed Sam getting the construct creation mode online. And which means Alex is going to be very ahead in the construct race here, because Alex can make this construct, untap, make another construct, search for Lava Spur Boots, haste them up, and rumble on in.
I was gonna say, I don't.
And now Sam's going to consign your.
Shouldn't Saga be on 2? Because you can't have a Saga with no counters on it, right?
So you can't have one that has more counters than it has chapters.
Okay. But
So Blood Moon sees it with like a counter, but no chapters.
So
but this is one with 0. So it just waits to gain 1.
Interesting. I never even thought about that part.
Yep. So here is Alex. In fact, gaining the construct, but looks like Sam countering the search mode. That trigger of the Urza Saga. Very importantly, saving Sam a lot of life because no hasty boots on that construct. Sam going down to 13. Alex's life total untouched. Very fun thing about Alex's Affinity deck, not a fetch shock mana base like much of the modern format, so not dealing himself any points of damage. The opponents have to do a full 20.
Nah, but each land is making these constructs a lot bigger.
Yes, no joke on that front. Including Alex on theme with his Mirrodin Island. Just letting you know that he's an artifact man through and through. Sam, 2 mana here. Pure Steel Paladin. Colossus Hammer.
It'll stem the bleeding for a minute.
Yeah, because this Paladin will be huge. Because this will allow Sam to have a 12/12 blocker, but consigned to memory on that hammer. Spell Pierce on the consign. Resolved Hammer, equip trigger, draw trigger. Sam with a big blocker. But Alex with 2 of these constructs, only 13 damage need to be done. And I have to imagine Alex is playing the blue-black of these bridges in order to have access to the mana to pay the black to re-equip on
Cranial.
cranial plating. Here's a Patchwork Automaton. Oh, fun fact that we were talking about how the Patchwork is a cast trigger. If Sam does draw consigns, you could consign the card being cast and the cast trigger on Patchwork. Anytime you can get a little 2-for-1 on there. But Alex here playing out the Mem Knight. Last card in hand is Thought Monitor. Drawing it up.
These constructs are getting a little bit out of hand.
Yeah, the constructs should keep growing. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2 8/8s. Sam can block one and eat it up, but Sam will go down to 5 to do so.
Is it worth it to wait or just get that damage in while you can?
I think that's exactly what Alex is going through right now, right? And honestly, a good thing to debate on. The game might be make or break based on how many of these constructs. Because if Alex has both, Alex has a good chance at doing a good block of using both these constructs. But then Alex won't be able to push through all this damage that we're trying to get.
Oh, if he waits, he also has Sam has his own Urza Saga, so he'll
Yes.
make a construct of his own.
And Sam can go get Shadow Spear and then make this game unwinnable. Right? Just continue to skyrocket in life total alongside this large Pure Steel Paladin. So this is kind of Alex's last shot, but Alex also needs these blockers so that you don't just outwardly die to Sam getting something like that Shadow Spear. And you can see Alex is in the tank.
I think he's going for a soul read. Does he have it?
Which, I mean, not a bad thing to do, but the thing is the soul read on Saga here is my opponent going to search for the card I think they're going to search for? That's the read. And now Alex asking a question. Sam explaining part of the rules interaction, making sure it's all clear. Oh. Sam definitely explaining.
Something about
Right.
Urza Saga.
Yeah, we're pointing at the Saga many a times. It has to be a question about the Saga. But the question is also, it doesn't look like Alex has mana to even interact if he wanted to. So the question is what is the question? And then part 2 is, can we even do something? Looks like Alex has a Spire of Industry in hand, so it does have access to a land if we need to play it, as well as a Treasure Vault. So it looks like this Thought Monitor drew a lot of lands for Alex. We were making fun of Null Drifter earlier. Thought Monitor, oh yeah, Null Drifter, boo.
Man, that Null Drifter came in clutch so many times.
Right.
It drew more cards than a ring.
Yep, it did do that. And the turn, Alex not playing a land out, passing it back to Sam. Sam thinking on this Saga trigger. Making a construct. Little windmill construct. Gotta love it. On the hunt. Is it find a Shadow Spear? Does Sam already have the spear? Is it find Hammer? But it is the Morgul Knife. The Lords of the Ring Alt Art Shadow Spear. Coming in, triggering Pure Steel Paladin, equipping to Pure Steel Paladin. And this is going to be to 13 lifelink powered creature. But Alex has two 8/8s in the form of these constructs, so the blockers are bigger. So the question is, what additional pieces does Sam have? And now Sam kind of has the better blocker, right? So now it's almost a situation that Sam. Just kidding. Come on. Forget it. Forget it. Forget it. Forget it.
He decided to play the planes over the Urza Saga?
Yeah. Holding up something. It looks like the plan is to let Alex block here and then play a new Paladin and load up the new Paladin. So that's why Sam played out the planes, because you can't do that off the Saga. Big construct. Pass it back to Alex. And now Alex doesn't have the advantage of two constructs that can trade, because one of them got eaten up by the last Paladin, and now Sam's got another huge threat. Outcast.
Couple more cards.
Just a couple more cards. Feels like the real reason why Affinity players like playing this is all the cards that allow them to draw more cards. Because it can't be a Love Memnite. That can't be it.
What do you mean? Everyone loves their little 1/1 for 0. What about Ornithopter?
Yo, Ornithopter, I don't know what it is. I got love for Ornithopter, but I don't have love for Memnite. I can't explain it. Couldn't tell you what. But Alex playing out that treasure vault. Sam, what are you working with? Quick play that Urza Saga. Big construct. It itself, 3 plus the 11, 14.
I think he has enough to take it down.
So Alex with a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 power construct, plus the 3 on the Patrick, give you 12, 13, 14 with these Memnites, 15, 16 with that Thought Monitor. But the issue is, you trade your whole board for this construct, then they all move right over that Paladin, and you got to start all over again. But Sam would be short on Metalcraft if that is the case. The 3 artifacts currently is the construct and the 2 pieces of equipment that it is wearing.
Yeah, but he's running a big risk not throwing anything in front of it.
Yes, it's so hard because the Shadow Spear, while giving lifelink, making this game unapproachable for Alex, it also gives them trample.
Decided to take the risk.
Yeah, Alex decided none. None's blocks for me. Sam going up to 40 to Alex's 6. I feel like Alex is so used to being the one doing this to other people, putting his cards together, making these big constructs, finding cards like Shadow Spear, and instead Sam is doing it to him. Darksteel Citadel pumping up that artifact count over and over, using this mana base to great effect.
But not finding anything to do.
Not finding anything to do. No, keep forgetting the cranial plating. I don't know if there is an Aether Spell Bomb, but I keep wanting there to be one.
There has to be one on the side.
Right? It's a blue-based affinity deck. Seems like such an important piece of interaction. Pithing Needle. Patrick Trigger. Boys, get out that Post-it note.
Bring it back.
Yep, it's Hammer.
That should help a little bit next turn.
Yes. The issue is Sam has Sigarda's Aid. There's the same problem as last time, that if Sam can get a route to getting a hammer in hand, you can use the equip trigger from the Sigarda's Aid to do so, as opposed to activating the hammer straight up. But not much Alex can do to play around that. Both these players playing very meticulously. Every decision so important here. He's not naming hammer. He's not naming
it's
hammer.
Probably worth it to name knife.
I was thinking Urza Saga.
Oh, it's also a good one. I just think taking away the trample after this one was probably your way to get more cards and just find more answers.
Yeah, making it unreequipable. It's Urza's Saga.
No more constructs.
Well, it's important because now Alex might have more incentive to actually try to throw everything in front of this thing to block, because knowing that Sam won't be able to make more constructs. So having less bodies to actually put everything on. They should have a 3-minute time extension out there. Bring it on in. Big construct. Saga trigger. Sam has drawn a Surge of Salvation. What are you thinking about? Oh, right, because we are not naming hammer here. So Sam is able to move everything over the construct and attack with that instead. So 3 power plus the additional 11. This is a 14 power creature coming in hot. And Alex took the big 14 hit last turn. Can you take another 14? The answer is no. You're at 6. You got to put bodies in front of this.
He flashed a card in his hand. I just couldn't see it.
Who did, Alex?
Yeah.
Is there like a artifact-based bounce spell that we should be worried about here? An Otawara? Something, right? I'm intrigued. We're going to let the boys out there do the talking. But deep in the tank.
Did it again?
All right, that's the double block there. Trading off for the construct. Importantly, right here, Sam loses Metalcraft but goes up to 54. Question is there a third artifact to play out? And there is not past the turn.
Oh.
Spire of Industry. Lands on lands for him. I think this is the Thoughtcast. Oh, Springleaf Drum. Okay. Trigger the Automaton. But right now, Sam is an artifact short of Metalcraft, but Saga, though it is needled, will be able to search, find that third artifact, Metalcraft achieved, and load up this Pure Steel Paladin. And it'll probably be another hammer. And that'll be 23 damage.
Now, do you get in for some chip damage?
Do I? Against my opponent at 54?
You got to start somewhere.
Dude, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. It is a hammer. You're going to trigger the Paladin. You're going to draw a card. Then all of these go on there. 23 points of damage. Alex, I don't think you have enough to block and take... I think you're going to take way more than 6 here. Equip. Ink Moth, if all of this goes poorly, swing it on in. Ooh-wee. Yeah, you had that thought about naming Shadow Spear. That might have been the move to just stop all of this from moving around. But Sam taking it down here at 54 plus life. 2 games to 1. Colossus Hammer, the Hammer deck, Blue-White Hammer, taking it down against Alex, Local Affinity Master. With that being said, we've had these long rounds. We'll be seeing you guys for round 4 in just a moment. Please don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Bye-bye now. Hello, Magic players. Welcome to round number 4 of Season 3, Week 3 here at the Nerd Rage Gaming Home Store Weekly League. I'm Dom Striker here with Bryce Jones. But would you look at this? Our players are well underway. George Jabor here with Jessica Control playing against our Merfolk Queen May, who's playing Demir Frogtide today.
Oh.
But don't worry, we'll get all that changed up here. A lickety split and no questions asked.
I never thought she'd get off the deck.
Now, I will say she's got Harbinger of the Seas in hand, so I can understand the confusion. And, George may have a rough one to fight through if that card comes slamming down here against Jessica Control. It's a Flood Strand and a pass of the turn. May here picking up land number 3 here in Dark Slick Shores. So this is the important thought of the Harbinger of the Seas. Is no swamp for May, so there's going to be nothing to be able to actually use black sources. And a spell snare here eating the Psychic Frog. May passing the turn back. Quick crack of the fetch land here for George. Most likely picking Meticulous Archive. Getting all those surveils on. But just kidding, it's a Plains. And a Lorien cycle? Yes, it is. There's the Meticulous Archive. But very importantly, George will not be holding up Counterspell next turn if this is the land base that we are working with. This Plains and this Thundering Falls will not cast that Namesake Control backbone card that is Counterspell. Basic Island there for George, and Narset, Parter of Veils. May looking at a Spell Snare only hits those 2 drops, not the 3s. And the big bird resolves and finds a Counterspell.
So, with the way Magic's going, do you think Counterspell will ever get, outvalued?
Well, they would just have to actually print, 1 mana counter target spell, right? The way to outvalue it is just remove one of the numbers.
Remove a number, add
or let us play
something.
Mana Drain.
Fair, yeah.
It's tended to be a little crept, right? There's a reason they don't let us play with that one. And that's kind of a terrifying thought to have as well. Because while playing with the card is kind of fun, I really hate playing against the card. So, Narset Parter of Veils taken down here, finding a Teferi Time Raveler. Bird finds a bird. But does George have the days, and is now the time?
Birds of a feather.
Flock together, right?
Yeah.
And we've got a Nar Crane and Tefeathery. I'll work on that, but passing the turn back here to May, who's facing down 2 Planeswalkers now. Had that early Frog. Frog was met with some counter magic interaction. 3 mana spell here, slam the Harbinger, and it is. I think that might be why George grabbed the Plains. Might have played next to May earlier, might have known that that's the plan. And just bouncing the card to Fairy and moving on. Unlock the mana base there for a brief moment. There's kind of the fun thought of, if you had a shock land, of playing the shock land while the Harbinger was in play, so you didn't have to shock for it to be untapped and then bouncing it. But George here using the chance to get Surveil on.
Now, he did just Surveil over a Galvanic,
Mm-hmm.
which answers the Harbinger, so... Oh, but he's just...
So does his Counterspell. Now, and May can't even respond with a spell center in her hand, because Teferi the Fun Unraveler is here, locking it down, making it hard to interact.
Oh, I think he brings all the fun to one side.
Yes. I have tons of fun when I have this card in play. But there's the frog. There goes the frog.
Oh, putting on the lock.
Right, and we're getting step by step. George will eventually. Oh yeah, George has the. There it is. Instant speed with Teferi in May's draw step. May will not even get an extra card. All these interactive pieces just not ever going to be able to cast them. Thanks to that Teferi, almost unremovable in play. George taking down that quick one using his namesake combo. A lot of folks cutting Narset days, but George just misses it and brought it back today and. Helping him out here, here's Demir Murktide out of May. Sideboard cards like Consign to Memory, Flusterstorm, Stern Scolding, Surgical Extraction, Hercule's Recall, Flaying Tendrils, Mystical Dispute, Toxic Deluge, and Nile Spellbomb. Bringing these Surgicals and the Bomb to deal with Belage. Dispute to fight these counter wars. and Flusterstorm for the same reasons. And that's it. That's all I got to say about that. George very accurately played around Harbinger of the Seas, didn't even give May a chance or a moment. So I wouldn't be shocked to see her try to trim those because the opponent is very aware of them. Same deal, possibly this go for the throats in this Murktide deck. Maybe some of these fatal pushes. Probably cards that we can cut and bring in these many, many, many more pieces of interaction.
Hop on over to George's.
Yes, Sky Control. Again, 4 Obsidian Charma, 3 Consigned Memory, 2 Surgical, Celestial Purge, Pyroclasm, Days Undoing, Dispute, and Verdict. Probably those 3 blue at the bottom, bringing that extra days to really push it against this blue-black deck. As Mystical Disputes, for the same reason the blue-black deck brings it in. Jeskai wants to bring it in to fight those counter wars.
It looks like players are already in their mulligans.
Yeah, they got the new meta here. See, there's 7 dice out currently.
Oh my god.
So that's how we know these players. This is how many cards they're going to draw. They can draw 1 card per die. And I think May is indicating which card will be mulliganed with the form of the green die. I don't know. Find your fun wherever you can, folks. I recommend it. Oh, yep. I guess players don't get to start at 17 life. We're going back up to 20 for each of them. Good laughs, good times all around. George, our Season 1 champion, May fighting every season, always at the top of those standings. Squaring off here in Round 4, Season 3, Week 3. It's a great time. Thank you all so much for being here. These players getting ready, drawing it up. Big 7s. May snap keeping 7. All those dice going away. Get them all out of here. George is a thinking, though.
George is always thinking, though.
It's good. Maybe.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That's a full keep. All 14 dice have been put away. Dark Slick Shores pass for May. What? Must be consider. Must be consider.
Okay, I have no idea what that
Lord of
is.
the Rings Commander Deck edition, I believe. I honestly thought it was like a spreading seas or something until it was cast at instant speed. But I believe it to be a consider. Shock for Watergrave and a pass, signaling something to George. Maybe it's Counterspell, Bowmaster, cards of the like. George is not a big fan of those cards, but also George knows that if he cracks this fetch land, that's a perfect window of him having 0 mana for May to try to push a card like Bowmaster into play. But May doesn't bite. Maybe May will consign the Surveil trigger, huh? We've seen it before. Yeah, probably not. Probably not. Big shuffles. Surveil. Wasn't the immediate entomb of hitting a Flage. Card kept on top even. Drawn per turn. Floodstrain, send it back. Consider once again for May. Keeps it, draws it, untaps. Watery Grave again, shocks again, holding up as much mana as possible, and May sends it back. May now holding up Counterspell plus Mystical Dispute.
This turn with my Sea Song. Nope. It's just
Nope.
Lango.
Nope. George not even cracking this fetch land. Draws another fetch land. May crack is the fetch land.
Just getting ready for Harbinger.
Yes. May finds basic island, which doesn't indicate anything. But that is a flooded strand, so Flooded Strand could not find the swamp, even if May was trying to get herself set up. There's the polluted delta. Polluted Duty, in fact, can find the swamp to get all set up for Harbinger of the Seas. Thundering Falls, Band Steam Vent. May goes a fetching. How quickly does May find the basic swamp here? Woof, 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 woof. There it is. Beautiful choice of swamp. Love this one. Really good in foil, too. All the little rain droplets.
Oh, yes. The Kamigawas?
Yeah. Send it on back. May continues to keep drawing these lands, which, it's not a bad thing. A counter war is impending. But it's just so many of them. Lots of cards in hand for these players.
All right.
The lands will continue until morale improves. Oh, fountain tapped. May goes a searching. George did not crack these flooded strands. May finds another basic. May's already gone through 3 watery graves, so might just be out of non-surveil fetchables and just not interested in finding them just yet. Preordain. Not ponder. Come on.
They all start with P.
They do. Painstorm, Preordain.
Painstorm?
Consider. I'm just saying they all start with P, right? Flooded Strand joins the motley crew of so many lands that May has. George, cracking these fetches now. Thundering Falls incoming, or Plains, perhaps? Thundering Falls.
He's going to hit the Flage. Nope.
Ding. Just kidding. No Flage, no Flage. No Flage, no mill. Draw. Dol North. Manamo. Manamo. May, I think, finding 3rd basic island. Sheesh.
Getting all of the lands out of the deck?
Yeah, all of them. I imagine this might be everything but the copies of Darkslit Shores and the Undercity Sewers. And May, strapping in for a long, long, long game, has not even searched out those surveil lands yet. Confirming 7 cards in hand to pass it back. George with a little blink, putting this subtlety into play just to get the one threat. May has fetched all the way down to 12. May's own doing. Subtlety, Spell Snare, Counterspell. Just a literal pile, not...
Gotta make the stack.
Yeah, but typically I do like left to right, not on top of each other. May with a Mystical Dispute target the subtlety. This is so important when you get in the middle of counter wars to not try to counter the counters, but use your counter and actually factually target it at the card that you're trying to hit. So in this case, May has to use the Pierce on the snare because it can't hit subtlety, but the dispute is targeting the subtlety because you want to make sure to actually hit what you want, not just the counter spell.
With all that wrapped up.
Yeah, because that was kind of the one threat. It's the first time someone tried to really supplant one. And now George with a Teferi, quick response of a counterspell from May. May can't let that stick around. Counterspell. Spell Snare.
Oh, wait, just rearrange that a little.
Yep. There it is.
And it's gone.
And all of it gone. Counter War won by May. May's won both the Counter Wars so far. He was an Arset Parter of Veils. George taken down. Finds Teferi. We've seen this before, but it was not this late into the game.
Seems to be a good time to find it.
Yeah, May picking up a Preordain.
Oh,
Narset in play. We've all been here before. Get that Scry 2 going. Subtlety and a Flusterstorm.
Well, you know it's there.
But you don't get to draw them, you know? So send them away. Narset taken down. This is where Days Undoing flops onto the table. Nope, just Counterspell. And then George will play the Teferi. Shut off the instant speed interaction of the Dimir Murktide deck. Take up to gain instant speed. Draw step.
Draws a force?
Which does not matter for Teferi. Here's the One Ring.
This ain't looking too good for me.
No. I think it's time for... Oh, May's just shuffling.
Oh, just no fetchables?
May, where's your Undercity Sewers? But anyways, here we are. George using the ring, using the Dolom Noth to untap the ring, ringing all over again. Digging for days undoing.
It's great to see Lord of the Rings cards interacting with each other.
Yeah, right. Literally the reskinned Manamo going with the One Ring. George fetching down, digging deeper, grabbing a Sacred Foundry. What could he need all that mana for? Couldn't possibly be Flage. It's Flage. And Flage is back. It's Flage and Escape Flage. Okay. Big draws. May reveals a handful of counter magic. And George taking it down 2-0. Jeskai control. Honestly, kind of beating up on this doing Murktide deck. Just being the bigger and badder version. If you deal with a frog here and there, it's very hard for this deck to fight back. And this allowed George to take it down 2-0. Thank you, folks, so much for joining us today. Again, this was week 3 of season 3 of the local Modern League here at Nerd Rage Gaming out of Buffalo Grove, Illinois. Thank you for joining if you joined us on Twitch. Thank you for joining if you joined us on YouTube. And this is what's happening in the Nerd Rage Gaming store all week. You're looking at Wednesdays right now, 6:30 MTG Moderns. But Thursdays, it's EDH as well as a live Pokemon stream. Fridays, as Havivi put it, we got the Boomer versus Zoomer night with MTG Legacy and Standard as well as support for One Piece. Saturday, Digimon. Flip it back to the beginning. You got Mondays with your EDH and your Digimon night, and Tuesdays giving it up to the lovely and beautiful One Piece and Lorcana card games. If you're in the area and you want to play some games, these are when they are happening here at the Nerd Rage Gaming home store. This has been the Wednesday night stream. I've been Dom Stryker, joined by Bryce, our man in the chair, stepping on up, doing a wonderful, beautiful job. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh.
I mean, ain't nothing but the best here from Nerd Rage Gaming, and nothing but the best from you, the viewers out there. Again, we thank you all so much for joining us. We hope that we will catch you next week. So long, good night, and goodbye.
Peace.